Going live. And we are live. Let's see if this went up. Please, God. Let's get this show on the road, folks. Okay, live to the whole world. Let's go. This week is very, very cool. I'm super excited about this show. I always end up getting these guests that are like, let's talk about something related to Jew-Israel. But today it is kind of like Jew-Israel, but it's more like physics and like the higher octave of the Jewish mind, because I am just like a total student of physics and quantum theory. I don't know if you guys saw, but my book hit #1 on Amazon new releases in quantum theory. And it is Ad Shiloh, the blueprint for the final awakening. And in it I go over a lot of Kabbalistic secrets that are very physics related. And I rarely get to talk about this stuff, so I'm really excited to dig deep. And I am just super stoked on this guest. It's rare that I get somebody this smart. Well, that's not true. I get everybody that's smart. James Lindsay was a genius. Dinesh D'Souza's a genius. Josh Hammer's pretty smart. Seth Dillon is a genius. Everybody's a genius over here. The Genius Club. Anyways, so before I get started, I got a lot of rants that I want to do. Let's fade out these tunes. They're very good music, by the way. I should post my playlist on the internet so that everybody can have a copy, because my playlist is really some next level stuff. But I went to the post office today, and I had to ship a package for Thanksgiving, and I wanted next day mail, right? It's called Overnight Express at the post office. And I go to buy it, and it is not, it's 2-day delivery. There's no such thing as Overnight Express. It's 2-day delivery. And it gets there Friday, so it's 3-day delivery because they skip a day for Thanksgiving. Okay. So this isn't the first time that this happened to me. This is usually like every time I go to the post office and need to do Overnight Express. But it's much more deeper than that. It's like, so I'm like, no, I'm not going to. It was $33 for 2 days. So I'm like, I'm not doing that. There used to be in this country Overnight Express. Now we don't have it. Now we have like this, since COVID, it all happened after COVID. Like our post office, which is a $25 billion a year annually subsidized system, doesn't have Overnight Express, doesn't have priority 2-day mail anymore. That's now like 3 to 4 days. Priority is now, for today, I shipped out priority. It's Tuesday. I'm not getting my packages delivered till Monday. Our country's like third world. Our post office is like third world. Like we had Overnight Express and 2-day delivery like before the internet. And now we have all this technology and we don't have 2-day delivery anymore. Overnight Express is too difficult. I mean, give me a break, folks. And then they constantly raise our prices too. And it's like this thing. They just want us to think like we're not going to notice, or that this is just how it is now. We might as well accept it. People are like, well, the cost of living is getting too high. And here it is. Like, this is like legit the reason why everything sucks in America is because so many Americans just accept this. We just accept this, that there's no such thing as Overnight Express anymore. Like, I want to see someone run for Congress just on fixing the post office. And that's where they commit all the voter fraud, too, because all the mail-in ballots go through there. It's like a shit show. And the post office is totally controlled by the Democratic Party. Nobody wants to talk about this. They all want to talk about like Alexander Soros or George Soros and all the Democrat lobbying and Act Blue and the Pink Girls or whatever they're called, Code Pink. But they never want to talk about USPS. And USPS is like literally a Democrat institution that is used to rig elections. Like if USPS was better regulated in the United States, like I think like the vast overwhelming majority of the country would vote Republican. Like it's not that they would vote Republican. Everybody is voting Republican. We just have the illusion that we're voting Democrat because there's just so much cheating. And a lot of it goes down at the post office. That's how they legitimize millions and millions and millions of votes. But besides voter fraud, I've always speculated, and that's a speculation, but the USPS, there's something so fishy going on. Like I remember it used to be like $7.50 for like 2-day delivery for like one of those ship anywhere boxes. Now it is $11.90 and like 6 days if there's a holiday and 3 days if it's like if you showed up like not in the first hour. And that's what I call America first. It's like wanting to fix the post office. Everybody has these like lofty, unfixable ideas like make America a Christian nation. It's like, oh my God, you're going to go convert everybody to Christianity. And speaking of which, I do want to speak out about, because everybody's talking about it, the Jake Lang thing. Like, I just want to put out one idea out there, right? Like, I'm all for, like, every immigrant class that came to America had it rough when they got here. These people that get here, they don't need to have it like handed to them on a silver platter before they're even citizens. So I'm all about immigration control and like really strict immigration control. But when it comes to like Muslims in America, I also want to respect the First Amendment, even though I don't want to. I believe in it, so I have to. You know, that's like the part of free will that's hard, is when you believe in something and you don't want to do it, but you do it anyway because you believe in it. So the Constitution I believe in. Like, he's not America first. The Constitution's the only thing that's America first. Everyone else is a grifting homosexual, and the only thing that matters is the Constitution. So back to the Jake Lang thing. I'm all for free speech and stuff like that, and I'm all for like restricting like Sharia law in America and, you know, that kind of control. You know, like we have Jewish courts. I don't see why they can't have Muslim courts. The Muslim courts have to answer to the secular court, you know, just like the Jewish courts answer to the secular court. But like if it goes down in Jewish court, let me tell you how Jewish court works. It's called Beit Din, right? So Jewish court, a rabbi is actually a lawyer in the biblical sense. In the biblical sense, a Kohen is the actual priest. So anyways, our synagogues are administered by rabbis, which is a good thing. Keeps order, keeps the whole kehillah together in the culture. And sometimes you have rabbis that cross over and take like a priestly function, and they act like priests, which is amazing. But in Judaism, these are separate. So our rabbi class is really like a legal class. Like you have to know the laws of 3 different categories to get something called smicha, which is rabbinical ordination. You have to know basar v'chalev, which is meat and milk, which is like the laws of kashrut. You have to know Shabbos, which is Shabbat. And then you have to know nida ta'arat mishpacha, which is the laws of family purity. And there's a test that you take, and if you pass the test, it's a written test, they lay their hands on you and give you smicha. And there's actually a smicha today that was made by the Sanhedrin of today, which is kind of bizarro, because the Sanhedrin there's some weird issues about that entity, and I don't know if it's like the end-all, be-all Sanhedrin of the Mashiach, but whatever. It's a functioning Sanhedrin at this point. I give them credit for organizing. But when it comes to Jewish court, the plaintiff has a rabbi that represents him. The defendant has a rabbi that represents him. And the two rabbis get together and they choose a third rabbi. And that third rabbi and them, they sit down and they judge the case. And I think that that's extremely just. That's the judgment. There's no one singular judge. There's three judges. And a high Beit Din, you should have like a dayan, like an actual judge is called a dayan. And that takes about 12 years of learning to really be a dayan and sit on a Beit Din like a dayan. So, anyways, Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam she'akol neh b'dvaro. So with the Jake Lang thing, like I was saying, I don't want to restrict like the First Amendment in any capacity, but I also think like it's incredibly like the wrong approach, disrespectful, I don't care how you want to put it, to do the bacon slapping on the Quran. Like, I just can't get behind that. Like, I got so excited when I saw people taking to the streets trying to, like, speak out against Sharia law in America, stuff like that. And like I said, if you want to make a court, like the Jewish court, okay, fine. And the Jewish court, they can't make a ruling that is law. They make a suggestion that gets used as evidence. So if the plaintiff and the defendant they don't have to accept the results of the Beit Din. It's up to them to resolve their issue. After the Beit Din says this, they're like, hey, if you want to still hang in the community, this is the judgment. And if they don't honor the judgment, then it goes to secular court, and the Beit Din testifies in secular court on the verdict, for the winner. And this happens many times, and like it's like a 99% success rate that the secular court sides with the Beit Din. And that could be a Muslim court too. It could be a Christian court. You can organize some sort of atheist court. Like, that's the First Amendment. It's the right to religious freedom. And I respect that, and I honor that. And the framers didn't say this is religious freedom for Christians, Jews, and witches, because those were like the only religions that were available at the time of the revolution in America. There was no other people here besides that, or Native Americans, but they didn't count, because they were the whatevers. But so Jacob Lang, like, I want to see it. Like, I want to see, like, hey, these are our streets. Like, you behave in our country type of a thing. But like, as soon as you take the bacon and slap it on the Quran, you're not behaving like you're in America. And I don't like the Quran. I think it's kfirut. I think it's heresy. But it's still, out of respect to people, you still have like this societal respect that you owe people in order to keep the peace. If you don't, then really you're just provoking. Like if Jake Lang came to the Jewish community and somehow bought a Torah and did that with a Torah, like, yo, I'd like seriously like take you out and take the Torah and rescue it. So like, don't expect others to like, don't be outraged. Like, oh, the Muslims got so crazy because he like took a bacon and slapped it on a Quran. Dude, like, if that happened in my community, it would be the same thing. It's like, don't be stupid. We all grew up in the 80s. We know what's right and wrong. Like, get with the program, man. You're acting like a fucking retard, and then you're suing everybody for like $250 gazillion each. It's like, fuck, monkey see, monkey do. But that's not a chimp out. That's not a chimp out. Like, I'm suing him because he called me Jewish. It's like, fuck you guys, dude. What the fuck are we doing? Anyways, without further ado, this story is over, and I'm going to move on because my guest is here. Super excited to have this guy. Everyone knows him. He's been around for a long time, and he's got like tons of answers, and I'm hoping to have a conversation that hasn't been had before. I'm all about MH370, knowing what happened, but the laws of the physical universe are deep. And when you have somebody who really knows physics and really knows the secrets of the universe, the conversation according to quantum physics, could be endless. So without further ado, I want to bring in my guest, the one and only Ashton Forbes. Everybody, welcome to the Adam King Show. Filmed in front of a digital audience. What's up? Oh, we got a mute, folks.
There we go. I'm loving the soundboard, by the way. Thank you for having me on.
Dude, thanks for coming on, man. I'm like really excited to have you. Of course, like you trend in the internet that like you're like, I'm done with the Jew hatred thing, and then you get really famous. Everybody's like, Ashton Forbes, Ashton Forbes, Ashton Forbes, Ashton Forbes, Ashton Forbes, Ashton Forbes. Oh, he sucks. He doesn't know science. He's a retard. Ugh. And I'm like, ugh. So, it's like the best thing to shut people up is just like sunlight, dude. Let's shower them with truth. Like, let's just have a conversation. Let's go deep, man. Like,
yeah, I mean, I think that applies. You were just talking about Jacob Lang, for example. It's like, where is the line of the First Amendment, what people are allowed to do versus what is cordial to do? And that comes up in MH370. Back in the day, when I first started this, people were always saying, oh, you're hurting the victims by talking about these videos. When I first started. And that it gave me pause because back then I wasn't sure the videos were authentic. So I was sitting there wondering, like, is this the right thing to do? You kind of have to wonder that in the back of your mind. And I agree with you on Jacob Lang. It's not that he can't do that. I think that the First Amendment gives him the right to do that. But the question is, like, should he do that? And I'm not going to be one that's going to opine on it. Like, I am the kind of person that's like, I'm not going to personally do that. But that's the point of the First Amendment, is that it allows him to do that in the same way that the First Amendment allows me to research these videos and to do my own investigation into physics and understand physics. Be self-taught in that regard. And I understand people should be skeptical. Nobody should take what I say at face value. Right. People should look into the claims that I make, the facts that I present, the scientific authors and papers that I talk about, and come to your own opinion. And I think that a lot of people, the reason why I think that I have so many followers is because a lot of people do that research. They dig into it and they have, at the glance, they say, oh, this is crazy. There's no way what this guy's talking about can be real. He's saying things like teleportation are possible, but then they start watching and they're like, wait, he's talking about the physicists that are like the fathers of all our modern theory and their beliefs and recent scientific papers that support it. So happy to talk with you guys about it tonight.
Have you ever seen that book, Physics of the Impossible by Michio Kaku?
Oh, I don't read a lot of books, honestly, but I have seen a lot of Michio Kaku's stuff because I grew up watching all like the Through the Universe and even the Cosmos with Neil deGrasse Tyson, who I don't have a high opinion of, but I wanted to learn all about
the universe. It's content. Even if he's a retard about everything else, it's content. We all watch the Cosmos growing up. You know what I mean?
Yeah, NGT, yeah. So, and I also just want to say, too, if it's too dark, let me know. We can go ahead and blame the government. We should have daylight savings time.
You mean your lighting? Your background? I love it, dude. It's a cool scene. It looks kind of like nightclubby.
I'm in Minnesota, so it's like already pitch black out. It's only 5 o'clock.
Seriously?
Yeah, it's
dude,
pitch black
I got so many Minnesotians who want to do content with me right now, including Stu Peters. He wants to do a 4th debate with me in person. Every single one of our debates got like millions of views. They were crazy. And it was all about the red heifers. You know about the red heifers?
Yeah, not really. Like when I hear those things, like those conspiracy theories that people start, like I generally try to avoid them for the most part. Like I got involved in the Candace Owens recent one because it got too insane. And these were people that were like, I've gone on their platforms and I'm like, whoa, are you, so I try to avoid some of that stuff. When Stu Peters, like, a lot of these people are just like classic grifters. Like anything that will get them clicks, they'll put out there. It's not there. A lot of times it's not even their own stuff. It's just like whatever rumors are like the hot thing, Go ahead.
They're not even rumors. They're Jumers. Everything with them is Jew everything. They're not even Israel first. They're Jew first. They're like everything Jew. Like nonstop, and then like they pray to a Jewish god. It's so strange.
And I'm I'm not Jewish, but I'm I'm not really religious either, actually. But I've become more spiritual from learning about the science and the physics. Going from
Well,
being
that's
somebody who
kind of like physics of the impossible. Like that book is all about like proving the impossible possible, which is really like science. I mean, science is kind of like magic in a certain sense. You know
well,
what I mean?
science is the study of observable reality. So science of observable reality, and when we look at observable reality, we get things like quantum entanglement. And now
Hmm.
you're like, wait a minute, like this is what gave Einstein pause, spooky
Hmm.
action at a distance. It's wondering like, how do we actually explain that two things that are separated by great distance, this is just an example, how when I change one of them, like the other one flips in tandem. Like, why is there this connection between two distant points that if I were to measure the distance and try to do the math, if there was a signal between them, it would be going faster than the speed of light? Like,
Hmm.
how is that possible? Because we've proven that quantum entanglement, been proven to be real. And no matter what you think of this world, of our reality, that's part of it. That's a physical aspect of this reality. And what I find fun about this or just interesting is that as you learn more and more about it, you're like, okay, wait, this kind of implies we must live in some kind of construct, matrix, call it
Hmm.
whatever you want to call it. Our space time, our reality must be a matrix. And every matrix, every construct must have a creator. That's how I look at it, just from a logical perspective. So the more I've delved into this, the more I've gone, oh wow, yeah. I think that there must be a creator of some sort. And so I think it is a spiritual journey. I think a lot of people go through a similar spiritual journey.
Yeah. So I kind of like get to physics through spirituality, actually.
Hmm.
And when I was younger, I don't know if that's true. I think that there's an entanglement between physics and spirituality, to be honest with you.
So,
But
are
in
you a
the
UFO guy,
Kabbalah,
by the way?
the what?
Are you a UFO guy or an alien guy? Do you believe in aliens, UFOs?
I have different words that I like to call the other beings that live here. My favorite class is I like calling them by their in English the immortals. I call them the immortals. Like I just think it's so cool to just talk about them. Like, but there's really immortals that live here with us.
Mm-hmm.
And there's like different classes of them, and they have like Hebrew names and groups. You know what I'm in the Hebrew language? There's like I don't like to say them out loud because I don't like to attract like so much of
Yeah,
that, But
I'm
sometimes with
sensitive.
the immortals, like I do, like I want to like meet the immortals, but they're the ones who are really calling the shots,
Hmm.
and they
There's a
just
lot of
hide. They hide, you know,
there are
in
a lot
plain
of
sight.
different. Go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say they hide in plain sight.
Yeah, and the reason why I ask is because I think that a lot of people have a similar belief that all culminates into this what we call this UFO phenomenon. I
Hmm.
think I heard Tucker Carlson calling them demons. A lot of people in Congress think of them as like angels or spirits. People say they're extra dimensional, and then you have the UFO community is all in on like little green men, aliens version. Um, but other religions will call them like the jinn, for
Yeah.
example, and I think that they may all be the same phenomenon
When
that
when you
everybody is
get
seeing.
to like the UFO stuff, it's cool to know about like the humans that are involved in UFO stuff. Because there's like breakaway civilizations that also took place of like uber elite advanced groups of humans that like kind of exist in on Earth in like a parallel place, very well protected and safeguarded to like in their breakaway civilizations. So
Well, let me
and
ask
the,
you on that. Can I follow up on that? Because
yeah, sure.
imagine, just as a thought experiment, like imagine that there was other humans that have access to technology that we know is kind of possible, like the idea of a cloaking blanket over you where you can be invisible. Like we've
Yeah.
seen those, you've seen the videos where people are doing that stuff and this kind of cloaking, but they've taken it to the next level with nanotechnology, right? Where it's like now it can be like in the size of like a contact lens, right? Stuff like that, where it's like the computer is in your contact lens and you're like seeing it all the time. Like technology, if you were that advanced and presumably that intelligent, you could easily go undetected and you could probably blend in with people and be, there'd be no way you could even tell anything like that. I guess what I'm getting at is like, what if the aliens, whatever you want to call them, they can just be, the breakaway civilization, whatever it is, if they have really quote unquote advanced technology, they're going to be undetectable to us. Like we always think about them as like the aliens are coming down to present themselves to us, but like they could just hide. Why bother interacting with a primitive race like us? Where do you think we are in terms of like technological evolution right now?
Well, when God created man, he created man actually the highest creature out of all of his creation. And in our perfected state, when we were born, we were made in the exact B'Tselem Elohim, in like the exact reflection of God. Like basically we look like God also. And we were made Zachar and Nekeva, male and female. We became Zachar and Nekeva. Actually, we were created as like this adronymous, asexually reproducing creature with 4 legs and 4 arms. And then the head, I'm fascinated by the head of the original Adam. But it basically was like one gigantic head. There was an eyeball in every direction. And there were ears in every direction. And because there's 4 nostrils, there was this nose in every direction. And it had like this all-seeing, it had 360-degree range. So it like reflected this all-seeing, all-knowing, all-smelling type of creature. It says in the Kabbalah that the angels prostrated themselves before man when man was created, thinking that man was God. And that's why we get the expression B'Tselem Elohim. And so when we, in our perfected state, we were made, essentially like kind of like in a laboratory. And if you think about what happens, he says, Lo tov liot adam levodo. It's not good for man to dwell alone. So mankind goes through like this process where he creates all the different creatures and all the different animals that kind of exist with us as our companions. And like it didn't get to the limit. Like we didn't feel fulfilled by it. And so when we got to the limit, we named it. And in this whole kind of like giant equation, God says, we don't turn to God and say, God, we want you to be our partner. We're like busy looking for like this physical thing to be our partner, and God is like trying to communicate to us through consciousness, because consciousness, it's like to talk it like consciously, like it involves like even telepathy. God wants us to just know what he's doing, even though he's revealed to us the Torah. So in this state, he puts man to sleep, and he separates male and female, just cuts them in the back. It says that he sews the back end up. So the back end is just, he covers the back in flesh. So, and then it says, it goes on, and then it says, Al Kenya Azov Isha Tavivet Imovet Debek Ishto. Therefore, man will leave his mother and father and cling to his wife. It's very interesting because like Adam didn't even have a mother or a father, but here the Bible's like talking about his mother and his father. So this is it's a Kabbalistic parable about why God created us. And the answer is because vidabek v'ishto. So like we didn't find a partner. We didn't turn to God and say, you're the partner. You're the ultimate partner. We were created to be with you. And because of that, God tried to teach us how to see that. And in doing so, he splits man and female, faces them, and makes them davek be'ishto. And it translates in English to cling. But in Hebrew, davek, it comes from the word davekut, which is like spiritual adoration for God. And so it says that man will have spiritual adoration for God to his wife. So that's what God's trying to tell us. He's trying to say this is why humans were created the highest out of all the creatures, including the immortals and the B'nai Nachashim, which is the reptilians, and all these things that are like throughout the Torah. but human beings, we were also created to be immortal. And this is kind of one of these kind of things from the Kabbalah that shape my perspective in physics and the world around me, is like this understanding of why were we created, what are we doing here, what is our ultimate purpose. And that kind of allows me to understand the physics of the world that I live in, and what is a physical law, what could be bent and what can be changed. But
Couldn't agree more. And that's part of the reason why I wanted to talk to you, because there are a lot of connections to this UFO phenomenon, advanced technology, and physics directly to the Bible. God, created in God's image. One of the popular theories out there is actually even connected to ancient history, is this idea of a reset, or that, maybe we are the aliens. We could be we could be descendants of our creator, which is essentially saying that we are built in God's image. And then one of the other theories is that we were created basically in a laboratory, or like, other beings intervened on this planet and created us, which then speaks to, again, creating us in his image. And then us being the highest form of life. If you look around on this planet, and if you were to say, look at Earth from a big lens looking down, what stands out? It would be humanity. Humanity stands out from everything else on this planet. We're building giant cities, and we have all this organization. And then from the consciousness perspective, I have not yet watched the new Age of Disclosure movie, but pretty much every UFO disclosure documentary talks about consciousness is at the center of all of this. And the answer and why, there's a few different ways to look at it. One is, from the physics perspective, the idea of the ether. Now, I think that the ether exists, but not the same ether that was hypothesized over 100 years ago, a similar version of it that unifies electromagnetism and gravity under an extra dimension. You can look at it from that perspective. From the perspective of like God talking to you, you can look at it from the perspective of, they call it remote viewing. I talk about it sometimes on stream, but rarely. But Hal Puthoff researched remote viewing with the CIA in, I don't know, the 60s, I want to say, maybe 70s. And he is actually the father of zero-point energy. So he didn't just do remote viewing. He changed from remote viewing and then just started talking about the atom and zero-point energy, how zero-point energy can explain inertia, gravity, all the areas of physics that we've basically been struggling to understand. So to me, I see that there must be this connection. And then going back to what I said before, this is why I wanted to have the spiritual conversation right away, was quantum entanglement. How do we explain this point over here and this point over here have some kind of invisible connection that we can't fully understand? Where there's a great reference to a quote by Ben Rich, and I'm going to paraphrase it. Ben Rich was director of the Lockheed Martin Skunk Works. He worked on the F-117 Nighthawk, which was a super secret spy plane that we were using. And the background goes that the idea is that the Skunk Works, the Lockheed Martin, knows about this electromagnetic, electrogravitic science and technology, and it's being kept for national security purposes. So Ben Rich is making all these claims in the 90s, saying that essentially we can take ET home. We have all this technology, but it's in black projects that are classified that nobody will ever get access to, and like the way the system's set up, no one's going to get it. So somebody asks them, they say, all that stuff you're saying, man, like, how is that? Are you messing around? How is that possible? How can that be real? That we can take ET home, that we can travel to the other star system? It should be way too far away. And he says, how does ESP work? That's his response. How does ESP work? So the guy thinks about it, and he goes, all points in space and time are connected. And Ben Rich says, exactly. So that's the answer to the question. How is quantum entanglement possible? How is ESP possible? Because all points in space and time are actually connected. We just perceive everything, this distance around us. We perceive this distance, this time, this experience of our life as the movement through this field that we're in all the time. But if you were to remove that field, if you were to look out from the extra dimension, you would see that everything is actually on a single point, almost like looking at a snow globe, right? Looking at a snow globe from afar is like you're looking at the thing in action as opposed to like being part of it yourself.
I truly think that nothing ever really goes extinct. And somewhere, somehow, that thing exists. Like, the earth is huge, man. Have you ever traveled like long distances by car?
Yeah, quite a lot. I like driving long distances. Yeah, and it's huge, but at the same time, we're also just a speck of dust. If you look at it from the greater perspective as well, like one thing I think humans don't understand very well is scale up and scale down.
Mm-hmm.
We are at this particular scale. This scale seems normal to us. This flow of time seems normal to us, but it only feels that way because we don't have anything to compare it to. We're always on this planet, this earth, and we're all on the surface of this earth, even if you're somewhere on the different side of this earth. Therefore, we all experience the same amount of gravity and we all experience the same rate and flow of time. And so, therefore, we think of it as like, time travel or time dilation seems foreign to us. But if we were on different planets, where if I was on a planet that had a much, much higher gravity and you were on this planet and we were somehow talking to one another, then what would happen is one of us would appear to be going slow motion while the other one's appearing to be speeding up, talking to them. But you could still theoretically have a conversation. It would just be really awkward to do
Mm.
it that way. And that's real physics. That's how physics
And there
really
is
works.
somewhere in the multiverse that is happening in a different conversation. That's happening at the same time with you and me.
Well,
Like,
and that's what, we're skipping to the end here. And I want to kind of go through some of the story, but that's ultimately, I think, where what has to be determined is that we know quantum entanglement is real. The
mm,
Nobel Prize was just won this year in physics for macroscopic quantum tunneling.
mm,
Macroscopic quantum tunneling. Quantum tunneling is this idea that an electron can get through a wall, that it shouldn't have enough energy to pass through. But somehow, a little bit of the wave gets through. A little bit of the phase gets through. They just won the Nobel Prize for that. So we're learning these science is real,
yeah,
right now. And now it's a question of, okay, is retrocausality going to be possible? Can we actually communicate back in time? And if we are able to communicate back in time, does that create multiple branching time paths, the multiverse theory that you're mentioning right now? But that's not the only possibility. The other possibility is they say the concern with backwards time travel is what they call, I think it's closed time-like curves or closed time-like loops, so that it may be that everything is deterministic. The example I like to give is, imagine that, like the MH370 videos, people wonder who made those videos. If they're fake, who made those videos or who leaked those videos, right? Imagine I'm the person that leaked them. I leaked them to myself and I don't even know because I just found those videos
you
on the
leak them
internet.
from the future.
Exactly. Like imagine a situation like that,
Yeah,
right? So imagine
but
that's
wouldn't
what
that
happened.
just be prophecy in a
Yeah,
certain
it would
sense?
be, So that's where like closed
Not
prophecy
if your
does.
future self came to you, but like if there's a certain level of prophecy. There's different levels. There's like the level of ruach, and then it's called ruach hakadosh, which is like super high. I mean, you're like performing miracles, bending reality left and right,
Mhm.
total reality bending. And then there's nevuah, which is just like a whole nother level of existence, and that's like prophecy. So when they talk about foreseeing the future, is like being able to determine what part, like a it's like an agreed upon definitive part of the multiverse that society will meet up at a specific given point in time. And
Yeah.
it happens. It's happened in the past. Prophecies have been fulfilled, et cetera, et cetera. What do you think about that?
So, when I first started this, I think I was a kind of guy that was like, yeah, little green men, aliens are real. I thought that the speed of light was the limit. We were never going to get past that. Like, that's the reason why we're not seeing aliens, was because, There was no way to even get from Alpha Centauri. Someone did the math on like that space rock, Atlas 3I, and it was like
Mhm.
40,000 years to get from Alpha Centauri to here going that speed. Just too slow. And now I'm the actual opposite. Now I'm going, aliens are definitely everywhere. We're just not seeing them because we're basically just primitives on this planet.
Yeah,
And
dude.
that the speed
We're
of
down here
light,
chimping out over like the dumbest shit.
we're down here chipping out. And literally, they're probably making memes about us, about the
Yeah, they
primitive
do. They
humans.
make memes about us. That's so funny.
Yeah, they're
That's
probably making
hilarious.
memes about us.
Yeah,
So
we're like kitten videos. You know what I'm saying?
we
They get
haven't
a
figured out faster
serotonin
than light
release when
travel
they
yet.
watch humans.
Look at these dumb primitives
That's why they
sitting out
have
here.
compassion on us, because they see us as like cute bunny rabbits and shit.
We're like the Sentinese people. They don't go near us, right? Because we'll hit them with the bows and arrows and kill them for no reason, right? We're stuck on our little island.
That's
And
funny.
so here's the problem, though, is that once you figure out faster than light communication and travel is possible, everybody asks the first question. Okay, can we go back in time? Is that possible? They call it retrocausality. And the more I've looked into it, it certainly seems theoretically possible. The experiments you want to look into are the EPR experiments, Einstein, Podolsky, Rosen.
Oh, I
And this
know a lot
whole,
about these.
yeah, quantum entanglement
Yeah.
experiments.
What book was I
So they
just
start
reading about this?
manipulating the quantum entanglement
This was
device, and they can control the path of one of the lights. So the way it works is
oh, this
essentially you
was the
send,
God effect, actually.
yeah, exactly. And the problem is when they start manipulating the length of one of the paths, they're like, wait a minute, I'm now able to predict the future. They're now able to look at like their control light and imagine it creates a shape. And whatever shape it creates is correlated to what's going to happen in the future, but you can't know yet because the path on the left is shorter than the path on the right. So the light is traveling shorter on the path on the left. So essentially what this allows you to be able to predict the future path of one half of the light beam without, like, basically I take my light and I split it in two. And one of them I can just see what it looks like. The other one I send it through a randomizer. I'm like, okay, you're going to go down one of three paths. Okay, one of them. There's no way I can know. But because I'm looking at the one on the left, I can already tell it's going down path one. I can already tell it went down path two. And if I change the distance of the path on the second half of it, now I'm changing time. So now when I'm looking at my control path, I'm actually like predicting the future. And so this is the part where physicists just start going like, wait, what? Because when they start seeing this, they're like, this seems to break reality. It seems to break causality. I shouldn't be able to know which path light's going to go down before it's even gone down the path yet. And so this is the quantum eraser double slit experiment. You guys can look into it because you'll find a bunch of videos out there. Some are saying, no, this is debunked. This doesn't work this way, but it's really just a matter of your interpretation. The more I've looked at it, the more I said, it looks like it is possible.
This is called the observer effect. And I
Yeah,
write a
and
lot of great length about it in my book, actually. And it's kind of like this Kabbalistic principle that, like, we are co-creating this world with God because of what we were created to fulfill with God, our role with God. And, becoming that means knowing who God is and accepting it and loving it and embracing it, and that's like real. There's like the world of physics is like the opposite. The way that I see it as the world of physics is the opposite of the world of free will, but it's like true free will. It's called Bechirat Choshit. And that is like free will, meaning that nothing in the physical world can hold a person back. That like essentially man can walk through walls, that man can do anything he wants. There's nothing that should physically be able to stop man, including death, and that man should live forever because of our countenance and how were we created as determined by the Bible, and this is what I believe. So in that observer effect, we have like this like kind of like co-creator power because of what we were created to be. And that's why, I believe the observer effect to be real. It's almost like, it's also like, this is how God kind of like interacts with us through our conscious reality. So in the world of Bechirat Choshit, we're like outside of the realm of physics. And then in the world of physicality, we're inside of the world of like nature. And there's like
Mhm.
this pull between nature and free will. And so like, Judaism is really about the free will side and trying to like access the free will and escape the physicality and the gravity and all that. So true, like in the Kabbalah, like true existence is kind of like bending reality.
Hmm.
So being able to change the laws of physics, essentially like walk through walls or levitate an object, for example.
Yeah,
So
I think those things are all possible. I think we can do anything, and I think that perhaps what we're doing is we are figuring out God's powers in a sense. The thing that scare me is there seems to be a connection to AI to this, and maybe that is us trying to tap in to that source code to some degree. And AI in theory should at least be able to predict the future with some probability. I don't know what that probability is and how you measure how accurate it is at the end of the day.
mhm,
um but all these things, I think what we're trying to do is we're trying to bring ourselves closer to God. And even when you look at Peter Thiel talking about the Antichrist, why is he so interested in that? Because I think that he's also undergoing his own spiritual awakening as he finds out about these technologies and the physics itself. And I think when you look at a lot of people who are potentially in the know, I think you will find that they become more spiritual in general because they all kind of have a similar questions about the universe. For example, moving towards the question of disclosure, what if we could live forever?
mhm,
What if this technology allows us to quite literally live forever, as long as we
mhm,
possibly want, assuming that you don't get shot or something like that, right?
mhm,
How, what are the implications of that? Because when people talk about disclosure, they're always thinking about aliens. That's going to be the first thing they sell us for sure. But they're not thinking about what about the technologies that would allow a species to get from another planet, potentially from another galaxy here, requires faster than light technologies, requires longevity, requires stuff that if we get these technologies, this is why we don't have the truth. Because if those things are real, and I believe that they are, now you're talking about people can live forever. You're talking about infinite energy, so all forms of energy production are obsolete. You're actually also now talking about what is even our society, because we live in this capitalist society, but now scarcity doesn't really exist anymore. So
mhm.
how do we structure our society? So those are the questions I would ask for you: is how do we deal with those issues? And even before that, maybe, would you even want to live in a world like that? Because I think a lot of people, given the opportunity, are going to say, I don't want to live in that world. I'm out.
It sounds like, in a certain sense, it sounds like it could be, you know, the world of the Mashiach, the final redemptive world, and there's like there's an inevitability with the future, and there's like a specific level of embracing of the future, and just speculating that there's creatures greater than us with greater technology. It begs the observer to really uh, uh, underestimate the possibilities of what could be taking place here right now. So instead of living in fear, I think like it's important to live in positivity. And so I write extensively in my book about the age of the Mashiach and how the age of the Mashiach is this world where we do live forever. And I believe it more comes about less through less through te- I don't want to specify technology, but it does involve a level of free will, a level of bechirat chofshit, I should say. Not I shouldn't call it free will. Bechirat chofshit is above free will. It's like fasting when you're hungry. Is the best explanation for it.
Hmm.
It's like
Well,
going against one's basic nature. And those natures and those impulses, once freed from them, the person can perceive like a whole new universe that like free will can access, like telepathy and whatnot. That could be, and even like, for example, Ashton, I'm an inventor, right? I make machines and they come into my head like visions before I bring them into the world. So it's kind of like the same concept,
hmm.
but It could be like a different thing. I kind of believe there's the messianic element is like definitely it definitely involves a level of bechirat chofshit, this free will, this divine free will.
I think that's maybe all that's left. It's like you say, okay, scarcity is gone. You don't have to
Right.
work anymore. So what is the point of living at
And you
all?
live forever.
And you can live forever, right? And the
Yeah.
question, and now we start asking big questions like, what's the point of living at all? Why do humans even exist?
Because like I
You
said
say free
earlier,
will. I mean, free
because
will is
what
the
I
right.
said earlier, this is where it gets so interesting. Because we were created like I said, Al Kenya Zovisha Devivet Imo Vidabek Ishto, and he will cling to his wife, this devekut, and he will have devekut to his wife, this spiritual adoration for God to his wife. We were created to be in love with God. We were created to be his partner through creation. We are the wife. Humanity is God's wife in a better context. And like that is the place that is our role. And when we accept our role, we live forever, and we like are co-creators with God, and we just go on this adventure with God through immortality and existence. So as a collective humanity, and that's Mashiach, and it's there's peace, salvation. 1,000 years of peace is the first beginning of the Mashiach. Sounds great, doesn't it? It sounds like a wonderful vacation.
Sounds good.
So I'm about what God's doing. I'm on like God leads me to that golden age and I think it's important to embrace technology, and I think it's really important to embrace physics, because physics provides an explanation of godly phenomena to those who are maybe even jaded from traditional interactions with God because of like religion or judgmental parents or whatever traumas from childhood or whatnot. It's like God's providing a secondary form of communication to us because he cares so much about us. He wants us
Yeah,
to be amazed by him.
it's really important, I think, that we make sure that science and physics isn't vilified in this, because I think there is a connection between physics and faith, like you just mentioned. And when I grew up, I was at least told the narrative was that, the religious people are closed-minded to science, and I don't find that to be true. And I want to make sure that we demystify that, break down those barriers, get rid of that dogma, because I don't think there should be. I don't think there's anything to fear from the religious perspective related to physics. There's nothing about it that's inconsistent with any of the teachings. So I don't know. I just think that's really important for people to understand before we dig into all this.
Yeah. I'll tell you, I think physics would make a great like laboratory for the Kabbalistic phenomena, because the Kabbalistic phenomena is it's just like so expansive. I'll give you an example. There's an entire study in the Kabbalah called the study of Chashmal, which is electricity. And in it, there's like all these ancient laws of electricity. And it's like in the Jewish tradition, it's like deeply in the Jewish tradition. It's like one of the most, it's like the Kabbalah is like, there's different levels of Kabbalah. There's this thing called Kabbalat Ma'asit, which is like the physical Kabbalah. And in the physical Kabbalah, that's where it like talks about Chajmal and like stuff like this. And then there's like this thing called Kfitza Derech, which is teleportation. Kfitza Derech translates to shortening of the path. And that's, in teleportation. And even throughout our history, we actually have like stories in generations of very holy people who performed Kfitza Derech, including in just like the previous generation, the Baba Saleh alav shalom. He performed Kfitza Derech, there's been a lot of miracle worker. I don't like the term miracle worker because I don't think it is so applicable to our generation. I think it is in a classic sense, but I think in our generation, the term should be like reality bender. Like a miracle worker is somebody who bends the reality to somebody's favor, Maybe someone is sick and they want to go to the Rebbe and get a bracha for healing, and he gets the blessing, the bracha, and he's healed. It's like a certain bending of reality, to provide a different path in the multiverse, kind of like timeline shifting. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, well, let's talk a little bit about it because I have some videos that I can show related to it. I mean, this is how
Sure.
I'm technically famous. I don't know. I don't consider myself famous, but um, so just the background. I mean, people can see. I've done a lot of interviews where
No,
I've
you're pretty
discussed like
famous,
the
dude.
background of the videos. But in 2023, I found these videos on the internet. I mean, many people have seen them before. Here you go. I'll share these.
You've had very famous moments. You know what I'm saying? Like you have like millions upon millions, hundreds and hundreds of millions of views. You have to have.
Oh yeah, hundreds of
You're
millions. Yeah,
like
for sure.
super
I don't know if
famous, dude.
you share the screen. I can't tell if
Fame is
it's.
measured by different metrics in this generation.
Yeah, and I'm not trying to be a famous person, but everybody looked at these videos, and early on, we didn't even know this was MH370. This was just some videos of an airplane with
Mm-hmm.
some things spinning around it. And so we
Right.
were sitting here wondering, looking at these videos, going like, okay, what could these be? And they got really big on Reddit, and I started following it and being like, wow, this is crazy. I've never seen anything this detailed, like especially two videos. They
Mm-hmm.
were presumed to be from military sources only because one of them looks similar to FLIR videos, forward-looking infrared that we've seen. This is the side by side, by the way. I'll share the other one in a second. But um, so it wasn't until, I mean, pretty early on, as people were looking into it, they found the earliest published date was in 2014. And they were like, wait a minute, is this that missing airliner? And then, sure enough, people match a Boeing 777. They match a Boeing 777 directly to that plane that we're seeing in that video. And that's literally a Boeing 777. So, excuse me. After you figure that out, you realize, oh, this must be MH370, the missing airliner. That's got to be what we're looking at here. And so then the big thing was that they looked at the metadata. In the metadata, you can see in the metadata it says Malaysian Airlines and 370, including the person who uploaded this first, Regicide Anon, made a Twitter account. That Twitter account said, watch this before it's deleted, and then it tagged MH370 in that. So what we're looking at here, after 2 years, because I didn't know anything about military surveillance or anything here, this is an MQ-9 Reaper drone here. This is an MQ-9 Reaper drone that you're looking at. This is
Okay.
not the camera underneath the nose of the drone, as you often see. This is actually a custom loadout where the camera is underneath the wing in hard point number 5 under the right wing. And it's a color FLIR. We've never seen color FLIR. The public has never been released any color FLIR footage. It's not that we didn't know it was possible. We just never seen it. When the drone goes under the wake of the plane, you can even see the shake of the wing there as well. This other one, this video you see on the right says satellite view. It's actually not satellite at all. I'll show another video of that here in a second. I've got the individual video. This is Gorgon Stair. This is another drone from above the plane.
Wild.
Took almost 2 years to figure this out, what it was, but it's
So
not
what's that
satellite.
cut in the picture?
What's the what?
What's that cut in the picture?
Oh, this is stabilized version. So somebody stabilized this and put it in comparison. I'll show you the originals here in just a second. But I think showing the side by side, like if you watch this dozen times over, you won't be able to find any dissimilarity between the rotation of the orbs around the.
How did they even have that video? Like, where did the video come from?
Great questions. So, and this is the biggest thing. So let me play this one. This is the Gorgon Stair. Look in the bottom left. You can see there's coordinates. This should go away. There's coordinates in the bottom left. It says
Where did
NRO.
these videos come from?
Yeah, so these had to have been leaked. That had been leaked. I identified the guy that leaked them to be Edward Lynn of the U.S. Navy. I dug around after trying to like being like, okay, if this is leaked military footage, which is it has to be. I mean, look at it. Look at what we're looking at here. Then the person would have been charged. They're going to find the person that did this, you know? So found Edward Lynn. He's the guy. He's legally changed his name. He won't respond to phone calls. The lawyer won't respond to anything. I mean, if you need any more evidence, then just check out the internet case around him. Makes basically no sense, the case around him. He got 9 years in prison. So somebody leaked this footage. Edward Lynn, let's just say. He can sue me if he doesn't like me saying his name. He won't even call me back. So
that was crazy.
he's on a computer. He's on a computer on the Gorgon Stair platform, moving around. He's got a window open. So what happens is they're looking at a huge field of view, and you press, and it opens up a window. And now you're tracking an object relatively close because these drones are flying overhead taking pictures. And then these pictures are used to create this video playback that you see here. And then right there, he closes the window. Look at this. This is so crazy, this detail. Watch the mouse cursor. See the mouse cursor? Mouse cursor comes over the screen. Here it comes. Oh, wait. There it goes. It goes to the top right, and then it closes the window. And look at this. The video is still playing. The video is still playing here for like 1 more minute. It's just all black. But there's nothing because he closed the window. So there's nothing to record. So that's that video. That was the first video to leak. And nobody had any idea what they were looking at. Nobody had any idea what they were looking at in that video until I revealed that it was Gorgon Stair like 6 months ago. Now, this is the other video. This video leaks like 3 weeks later by the same person, Regicide Anon. And this is the alternate angle of the exact same thing. And we can tell these are real clouds. I mean, look at these clouds. Does that look like CGI clouds here? Like, this is a nighttime thermal footage. And you're looking at these, like, relatively pixelated because it's not high quality video, but, you know, there's probably a higher quality version of this on a military archive somewhere. This is the part where obviously people are like, okay, like, I can't believe what I'm seeing with my eyes here. Because what are we looking at here? And I'll just skip to the end. I'm not one of these people that tries to build suspense. These are fusion reactors. These are plasma fusion reactors. And somehow I was one of the only people to be able to piece together that this is plasma that we're looking at here. This is like, you can tell because of the way it like it morphs around a little bit, like almost like it's being pushed around by the wind. These are little fusion reactors, and you're seeing X-rays coming out of these black spots. The reason why they're black is because X-rays don't show up in a thermal camera. Mm-hmm. So you're seeing these X-rays, and they're using them as propulsion in these little fusion reactors. And we've just been so led astray on fusion.
Wow, pause it for a sec.
Go ahead.
Back up. You could see there's kind of like a tail in the fusion reactor.
Yes,
you see
exactly.
Like a black kind of tail?
Yep, and it's in front of them too, like near the end here. Let me see if I can get a good shot. You know what? Let me show you. Let me just play this out, and then I'll show you another version that's pretty cool. Because it zooms in. So there's a few details here that really give away the game. One, you can see the heat signatures there.
Yeah, that's so weird. Look at, whoa.
And look at when the operator zooms out. Look at them zoom out here. Like right before this happens, they zoom out.
Can you pause it on that? Can you pause it on that explosion?
Yeah. So
can
this
you get to that frame?
Okay. The same video has this in it. This was part of the original video. Has it slow-mo.
That's crazy how the clouds move too through the slow-mo.
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
Exactly. I mean, everything's moving because that's a real video of a real event. It's just unbelievable because there's nothing there anymore. And we're like, wait, how can there be nothing there?
What if that was a weapon that like just disintegrated them?
Yeah, it could be disintegrated. But when you look at the laws of physics, the laws of physics tell us
what is
conservation. This? Everything must be conserved. So if this is disappearing, there must be an equal amount of antimatter, or that's got to reappear somewhere else. And that's the rub, is looking at this. Nobody look at that and go, wait, that can't be real.
It's kind of like a triangle around it. Do you see?
Yeah, the triangle pattern is super important. The heat signatures you see on these orbs indicate that
it almost looks like a portal is opening up.
Go ahead.
It almost looks like a portal is opening up.
Yeah, and that's why, I mean, people call it a portal. It doesn't just look at it expand.
Whoa, did you see that? Like right before it goes, it it starts going faster. It leaves a bigger trail. Look at that. You see it? So it's like going faster and going in.
Yep. And they're collapsing inward. And do you know what this is?
They collapse inward and they go,
And perfectly equilateral, right? And it almost looks like you see gravitational lensing right here. Look at this frame right here, right before the plane disappears, right there. Look how blurry it is all of a sudden. All of a sudden it's blurry in this frame. I don't think this is because the camera's moving. I think this is because they're creating a gravitational field that it gets captured in that frame. And then look at this frame. You can see the tail of the plane sticking out right here. That's the tail of the plane right there.
That's crazy.
It's like the reflection of the tail of the plane sticking out. So, and then it looks like you can actually see like this like event collapse. Like watch this
It
closely.
actually
It opens
doesn't.
up,
Yeah,
and then it
you're
sucks
right.
back in.
You know what? If it was an explosion, it would leave like a plume of debris.
Right. And it
You
would
know.
be white hot. It would be white hot. The thing is, it's all black. That was the biggest thing about it. Is like, why is this all black? Shouldn't this be white? It's a thermal camera we're looking at. Shouldn't it be all white hot? This is not a white hot event. So you know what this is? After digging through this, and I'm surprised there weren't more physicists that were speaking out about this, because it's like we're talking like fingerprint level matching here. Thermonuclear weapon. This is inertial confinement fusion that we're looking at here. This is how thermonuclear weapons work, is that they create geometric patterns like this to collapse waves down onto a single point, just like this. And they use plasma as non-fission triggers. And it's not a lot of literature about it because a lot of this stuff is classified under nuclear weapons secrets. But even the classifications themselves of nuclear weapons, Sigma 1 categorization for nuclear weapons is magnetohydrodynamics. That's control of plasma with magnetic fields. Sigma 11 is inertial confinement fusion. The whole point of inertial confinement fusion is collapsing energy onto a single point to make it implode. And what are we seeing here? We're not seeing an explosion. We're seeing like an implosion essentially happen. That's why we see this like a release of X-rays, but we don't see no heat. There's no heat coming off of what just happened right there. So it's a non-thermal event that we're seeing occur. So when I started to research this, I right away found this guy, Hal Puthoff. I mentioned him earlier. Hal Puthoff, he'd been on Joe Rogan. He had been written a bunch of papers about 0-point energy. He is a CIA Defense Intelligence Agency guy. He has been writing and talking about wormholes and warp drives. He's a UFO guy. He's on this Age of Disclosure documentary talking about free energy and the energy sources of UFOs. And I'm looking at this and I'm like, wait a minute, what is going on here? So I'll let you ask some more questions, but let me ask, and then I'll stop sharing as well. Is that question again? The main question you asked: why are they recording this? Why are these cameras doing out here? That's the big secret of these videos. The reason why you don't see more people talking to me, the reason why you don't see me on CNN talking about these videos, there's no
they're not
way
going to talk about this stuff on CNN. That's just never going to happen.
They will one day probably, but there's no way to blame this on aliens.
They talk about like disclosure stuff. Every once in a while, they'll talk about something, related to disclosure.
Stop sharing. Oops, sorry, stop sharing. So yeah, the reason though is because that's a United States military operation. There's only one reason why they're recording that plane. It's not because we're just randomly out there and we happen to catch a Boeing 777. The whole thing must have been an operation from the beginning. The whole thing was an operation. Those cameras are only there filming because that's the tail end of the operation. That's like the final hoorah of the operation.
You're saying they filmed it because they were filming themselves do it.
Exactly. And also we probably film all thermonuclear weapons. In fact, what even is a thermonuclear weapon anymore? This is the question that I would challenge people their preconceived notions. The last time we saw a thermonuclear weapon, at a minimum, it was the 60s, but it might really be like the 40s. But do we really think they stopped developing thermonuclear weapons? And why can't a thermonuclear weapon manipulate space-time? If you ask like AI, it'll tell you, well, it's not producing enough energy. But for manipulating space-time, you need energy density. And atoms are 99% empty space. Like we look at an atom, we would see it's almost empty space, just like it will look like our solar system. So in theory, if you compress that down enough, you can create energy density strong enough that it can produce a gravitational field. So I think that they did figure out how to manipulate space-time with nukes, with thermonuclear weapons, specifically when they were building fusion bombs. And then
there is like this, there is like this physical like this physics for weaponry type of thing. It's like the defense industry kind of like they like want technology to focus around weapons, and so like the war industry, and it's dangerous misapplications of potential physical, benefits. Like for instance, nuclear technology, could be unlimited free power for everybody. But the truth is like what do you think about like free energy devices and perpetual energy machines, stuff like that? Because like
Well,
sometimes I think to myself that like okay, like maybe nuclear energy isn't even the only way that we can have free energy. Like
when it boils down, it comes down to whether or not you think there's an extra input. You can't break the laws of thermodynamics. So the first law, there's really two laws that apply when it comes to free energy. When it comes to understanding electricity. First law, nothing is created nor destroyed. So from this situation, we can always convert energy, but we can never have whatever we get. It's just got to be a conversion of energy from matter into electricity. There's no such thing as a free lunch. The other second law of thermodynamics, no system can be perfectly efficient. This is the one that holds people up from free energy devices, because they would say, even if you can extract 0 point energy using plates, from the perspective of the Casimir effect, if we put two plates close to one another, they come together. We could use that to charge a battery. Problem is you have to pull the plates back apart if you want to reset them. So therefore, using that to extract perpetual energy will never work. So the way around the second law of thermodynamics, and this is going to hark back to the previous parts of this discussion, is to add an extra input. The secret to the second law of thermodynamics, where you can break the law, is that it only applies to a closed system. So if I draw my circuit and I say, okay, I've got my circuit here, and I can never get more output of this circuit than I put into this circuit, because this circuit is only going to be 99% efficient and never can be 100% efficient. So my coefficient of performance is 0.99, 99%. Every unit of energy I put in, I get 99.99% out. Great. Now I understand that. How can you break that? How can I get coefficient of performance greater than 1 in that scenario? There's only one way. There must be another input. We have one input of one unit. What if there's another input of another unit? Now I have two totals. And there is another input.
There is. And for instance, like a river is a perpetual energy machine. Like we could power the entire world on the rivers. Like the downward falling of water is like
you get it.
The
because
force of gravity is like a free energy. Gravity itself is free energy. But like I think about like free energy machines and stuff and like magnetism, and I'm playing with like different ideas to like create free energy. And like I think about a magnet, like if you have two magnets that are like sitting here and they're like strongly attracted to each other. But like let's say they're both on a rope that's connected to like two poles, right? They're connected to two poles. And those poles can bend, So those two magnets are going to be drawn together, but by the length of the poles, their draw is greater than the length, so that they will stay levitated by the pull, because the draw is keeping them together, the force. But it's pulling on these two poles, so it's creating like this kind of like negative vacuum space of pull and energy. Yeah. And so I think about like magnetism, and that's an efficiency, like these two arms can be like, put on a road, there's so many ways to harvest energy from that. And I think about like Nikola Tesla and harvesting energy from the sky, and like, the idea that magnetism flows in one direction across the earth from the northern to the southern pole of this paradigm that we've been placed into, to kind of try it, to draw it back to spiritual, things, this physical cavern of reality, if you will,
So let me
So
jump on a few of those points because
sure,
I
get
can
on it.
add some support. So first of all, energy is everywhere. Tesla. When it comes to this science, where does the science go back to? The stuff that they're hiding, suppressing, however you want to explain it. I mean, it's all there in the public. We just don't give it a lot of credit. It goes back to Tesla. Energy, frequency, vibration, resonance. That's what Tesla figured out, is that there's another factor at play. And resonance, because everything's waves, resonance is king. How waves interact with other waves, cymatics, these kind of physical phenomena that we see that get kind of discredited in physics are way more important than we imagine. And I think that thinking about your magnet, why does your magnet stay stuck to the fridge? Is that perpetual energy? Well, how is the magnet able to stay permanently attached to that fridge? You would say, well, the magnet's going to run out after like 40 years. Well, that's still a lot of energy for it to be stuck there for 40 years or however long that is. So here's a few. You mentioned the river example. Another one that people use is the waterfall example. Whereas that we hydropower, nobody would say that we can't harness hydropower. There's an asymmetry that we're harnessing in that situation. We're harnessing the asymmetry where the ground is shaped like this and the water flows. There's actually what you said about the vibrating, vibrating magnets. There's two ways to look at it. From the magnetic motor perspective, this is actually how magnetic motors work, is that they use electromagnets. And when you want the magnets to come together, you have the electromagnet on so that they attract towards one another. And once they get past each other, and then they would pull back the other direction, working against what you want to have happen, you turn the electromagnet off. So then it keeps going. And then it turns back on when the next magnet comes around. And this is the idea, is if you do this in a resonance, then in theory, you can produce over unity. And that's only possible because you're interacting with this 0 point energy. There's this extra input. Now, how do you get enough energy out of that to make that practical? That's the challenge, because you're getting this only small amount of energy. You need it to be a practical amount of energy that you're getting out of it.
It could be
Paul
something
Thibodeau.
like, it could be something as simple as a computer code.
Yeah.
A binary code on and off.
Yep.
That
And
calculates, on is this way, off you turn it, and but at such a micro level of time that a human brain isn't going to calculate it.
And Paul Thibodeau, so graphing, how did they abuse this? How is this stuff possible? It actually goes back to Einstein. The reason why we have to combine electromagnetism and general relativity is that the electrons themselves, like if I take an atom, a hydrogen atom with one electron, and I shoot it with a laser and I rip the electron off of it. Now I've got my little negatively charged electron and my positively charged hydrogen ion here. If I've got my things separated here from our energy perspective, and now what I want to do is I want to manipulate, I want to use general relativity. General relativity tells us we're all in our own little bubble frame of reference all the time. So what we do is we make our electrons vibrate back and forth. Because when this electron is looking at this electron, it's just like when I'm looking at you. The same general relativity applies to the electrons as well. So if I want these electrons what I want them to do is move very fast in opposite directions or back at each other. Like that's how we abuse general relativity, the Doppler effect, essentially. So this is what we want to abuse if we're going to take advantage of combining general relativity with our electrons. And this is what Paul Thibodeau did with his graphene microchip. Just like you described, is that graphene has a very high surface velocity, which means the electrons move very fast. So we're going to have this vibration, or these electrons moving in opposite directions, and we want them moving very fast. And when you set up your circuit like this, he found that he created an asymmetry. He essentially created a waterfall, but on a microchip. And the way he describes it is just harnessing like heat fluctuations. And now, of course, this is a very small scale. But essentially what he's shown is that he's created a battery, a little capacitor, that its default state is not zero. Its default state is anything above zero, which is what you would think of as free energy. And how is that possible? Because he's abusing the electron drift velocity of graphene and general relativistic motion between the electrons. And this is
He's
all
doing it in a physics. He's using physics to create a supernatural phenomenon.
And that's a way to look at it, right? That's a way to look at it. And I think that this is why his paper in 2020, look him up, Paul Thibodeau, for the people that are out there. His paper in 2020 was like the second most popular scientific paper that people read, like hundreds, thousands of clicks on it, people reading it, and people couldn't rationalize it because they're going, this is free energy. And they're going, the laws of physics say this shouldn't be possible. But he literally created the microchip and all of it. And he even shows that it only works in certain orientations. This was another thing I wanted to mention. You said there's so many different ways to do free energy, and you're right. So I just explained magnetic motor, I explained Paul Thibodeau's microchip. Another free energy device is just a tube, a special composite tube made of a specific material. And only when it's oriented against, I think it's against the magnetic field of the Earth, then it generates a charge, a voltage under it, which is just free energy. But in that sense, it's actually technically absorbing the energy of the magnetic field of the Earth from a technical perspective. That's what it would be doing. So in some cases, things can be explained completely from a conventional classical view. So you can have this tube that's just, if you align it properly, it produces a voltage. If it's not aligned properly, it doesn't produce a voltage when it's not against the magnetic field of the Earth. And in other situations, you require there to be an extra input, like with the magnetic motor. The magnetic motor can't work unless there's an extra input. Otherwise, thermodynamics says it shouldn't be possible. The final evolution is fusion, like those reactors I was just showing you there. When we were looking at those plasma orbs, we see this heat signature in them. We see these lines coming out of them. We see almost a perfect spherical shape. And the plasma is on the outside. The plasma is just being confined by a magnetic field. We're not seeing walls around those orbs. So the question with plasma and fusion has always been, is it just a chemical process? Is it just as simple as, okay, if I mix up my deuterium atoms, I'm going to get a helium, is it just that simple, or is there an extra input? Because now if that extra input exists that we were talking about, now fusion potentially becomes an unlimited power source where because right now people look at fusion, they think of it as, well, it's unlimited because there's so much hydrogen, we could never use up all the hydrogen. But if there's an extra input, it's not just that. Now it's just unlimited energy forever.
You're talking a lot about hydrogen, and I like how you're bringing it to the periodic table of elements, talking about, free energy. And I have this fascination with helium, and I think helium is also a completely underrated noble gas. It's almost as if helium technology is hidden from humanity. There's so few helium balloons in the sky. Do you know how many grand blimps are in the United States? This is going to shock you, this number. Take a guess.
What kind of blimps? Just
like the size of the Goodyear blimp. Blimps.
I don't know, 5?
Airships. What are called airships? Is like a blimp. Yeah. We call it a blimp.
Goodyear blimp. I don't know. I didn't even know there was more than a few.
19.
19 total, huh?
Is that crazy?
Oh, wow.
It's so
right.
few.
Do you know why helium?
It's so few. I think it's because, helium is the most abundant, one of the most abundant elements in the universe. I've been studying helium a lot, actually, and it turns out that helium is created inside of the Earth, and it fuses out at different parts of the Earth, and that's where we mine our helium from. We find these helium mines, and but as one of the noble gases, it it's almost as if the Earth is producing helium, and then through science we learn that helium is just the most abundant element of the universe. The universe is just entirely comprised of helium. So it's almost like there's this.
I think it's hydrogen that's the most abundant, but you're right about us mining helium, because I think that a lot of people were talking. I think it was General Quast on Sean Ryan talked about mining helium-3 on the moon. And here's the rub. Here's the trick. Turns out here's the big secret: aneutronic fusion. This is a term that everybody's got to get into their lexicon. Next year will be aneutronic fusion disclosure 2026. But normal fusion,
helium makes up 24 to 25% of the
still
mass.
A big percentage. Yeah. Okay. So helium's a big percentage
And
still. But
hydrogen is
hydrogen is number one, though, right?
73%.
Yeah. Hydrogen is number one. So helium is one of only one of three aneutronic fusion fuels that we know of right now. What this means is that when we use this as our catalyst in our fusion reaction, the energy output is not in the form of heat. The energy output is in the form of electricity. It's called direct energy conversion. And if you're sitting there going like, wait a minute, if that's the case, shouldn't we always have just been doing this? Yes, exactly. Now you're understanding why this is the secret. When people think in their head of nuclear power and they think we're like splitting the atom and just absorbing the electricity out of it, that's actually what we're doing with aneutronic fusion. We're not splitting the atom, we're fusing them. But only helium-3, boron-11, and lithium-6 or lithium-7, those are the only three aneutronic fusion fuels. And one of them, lithium-6, lithium-7, that's used in thermonuclear weapons. In fact, MH370 was loaded with lithium-ion batteries. And that was a big point of contention in the mystery, because early on, all the public officials said that there was no dangerous cargo on the plane. And then 2 to 3 weeks later, after they had already had this story of the plane going to the South Indian Ocean, they finally admit, oh no, there was 500 pounds of lithium ion batteries in the plane. People are going, like, you should have said that, because these are really dangerous, and like a bunch of planes burned up.
Why was there that much in the inventory? Like,
why indeed? And to this day,
what was like the import? Like, whenever you put something on a plane, you got to fill out like a little duty.
And the documents, we found those, the shipping bill or whatever it's called, and it just says like electronics equipment, and it's like 4,000 pounds. And then somehow out of that, you get 487 pounds of lithium ion batteries. I don't know if that's just what they said versus what's documented. But people always ask me, do you think that the batteries were on fire? And I think that they were. I think they were used as like a diversion to force the plane to turn around, which is why I think it really turned around. Because we're seeing smoke coming out of the plane in those videos. And then it could have been used in the fusion bomb. For whatever we're seeing there happen in the plane, even no matter what you think happened to the plane, it should be kind of a suspect thing to wonder, is there something on the plane that's allowing that to happen? Or can just 3 plasma balls just spin around and cause something to disappear? And now, back in like a year ago, I would have said, I'm not sure. I don't think there needs to be anything on the plane. But now that I learned about thermonuclear weapons, now that I've learned about how lithium is one of the only aneutronic fusion fuels, now let's go back to the videos. Imagine the videos again. Remember, we see this black blob, and then the plane's gone. It seems to be some sort of extra dimensional thing. You could call it a portal if you want, because, the sky doesn't get blown away.
Something also completely happens.
Yeah, something weird there happens. And then it doesn't release a huge amount of heat. There's not this white hot release of energy. Right. So
there's no lingering heat either.
Yeah, and no lingering heat.
That's the
so
big
what we're
deal.
Looking at seems to be aneutronic.
Even if something like disintegrated the particles to like an infinitesimal dust level, there'd still be like a trail of heat, just in like oxygen, just in the absence of oxygen,
So this is where we really have to now say, okay, and most people looked at it, I said, okay, that's impossible. I'm just going to ignore this, right? And when I was looking at it and started investigating, I'm like, okay, it seems impossible, but how could this be real? How could it be real? And it turns out it goes back to Hal Puthoff again. He's got something called the Space-Time Metric Engineering scientific paper from the 90s. And he's not the only person. What you're going to find is a lot of people have kind of figured this out. And once you know what you're looking for, you start to see it everywhere. But essentially, it's this idea that the ether, the space-time itself, can be manipulated with electromagnetism, with energy. Just like Einstein. He basically took Einstein's general relativity and he mixed it with this idea of the ether. And he said, okay, we're going to call this, what do they call it? Stochastic electrodynamics, quantum electrodynamics. And we're going to mix this quantum mechanics with general relativity. And we're going to say this gives us the framework for manipulating space-time. And now we're saying, okay, what is a clean fusion bomb? The thing they were building in the 60s. What does that even mean? If it's clean, that means there's no neutrons. That means there's no heat. What would that even look like? Nobody's ever seen one, ever. This is where I would ask people. We should be asking the government, what does a clean fusion bomb do exactly? Like, If it's not a big boom of heat, what does it do? Because Hal Puthoff would say,
Has anybody like, you know, obviously this would be like a top secret file. Like this wouldn't be like publicly seen video unless a video like this is leaked to the public in some sort of way.
and who would have known? There would be people like Edward Teller, right? Father of the A-bomb. He would know stuff like this. He would know these kinds of secrets. Well, who was Hal Puthoff eating dinner with back in like the 90s or 2000s? There's video of it. Edward Teller. In fact, one of the stories Hal Puthoff tells in some of the interviews he does is about meeting Edward Teller. And you're like, huh, because especially
I imagine that like a lot of people, because like when you do like Magnificent, I mean, you and I are meeting right now. You know what I'm saying? So
sure.
like, I meet with people all the time. Like I said, I had 3 debates with Stu Peters, for crying out loud. It's not to say that, you know, it's kind of like a quantum entanglement too, in a sense, you know, like. But I understand what you're saying. Like with these things, like, have you ever seen like? There's other videos like in the UFO space, like where they, you know, show disclosures on like I don't know, like just different types of UAEs and like you know all sorts of, you know, other types of aircraft and you know, different things, all sorts of videos I've seen in the last 2 to 3 years. Really like the age of disclosure. And I remember that like now we're like at this time where there's been so much of it. And there was like this whole grift on the JFK files, for example, where they were like trying to blame everything on the Jews. Like the Jews killed Kennedy. Oh, the Jews, it was the Jews. And it like dominated the press for like 6 months to a year as the JFK files were about to be released. Dominated with like veracity. And it like comes out and it's like all about alien nations and their races and stuff like that in the 80,000 pages. And like the public is like, oh, it has nothing inside of it. It's totally worthless. You know, it doesn't mean anything. And they call them the Ebes and all the nations of the Ebes that the government's interacting with and the different types of technologies that it has. You know, and so I would think like, you know, I would think that the treaties that are keeping this world together sometimes are like above this world, and like you know, forces that rule. Like there's this expression in the Torah that God has all the hearts of the kings in his hand. He lifts them up, he takes them down. You know, so specifically with the kings, you know, of this world. And so like you know, like as geopolitics moves in directions and whatnot, God kind of like puts the world into like motion in a certain sense, and our human role is fulfilled in it. But you know, these technologies, the Zohar speaks about this time right before the Mashiach comes, that is about like this moment of absolute disclosure. And it's like the gates of disclosure are just like blown open to the public, and it's just like the secrets of the universe. And it involves the emptying of the Vatican's catacombs and like, you know, just like the craziest secrets of the earth. Like it's like next on Secret. Every show is about the secret being revealed, you know? And it's like, but like there is going to be this age of disclosure that like maybe there'll be like some sort of legalistic framework. And as they start to release things like the JFK files and the Epstein list and other things, like that age of disclosure will kind of like be more and more upon us. But I feel like the ultimate age of disclosure is kind of like a little bit of a Truman Show moment for humanity. And I think the ultimate realization is our relationship with God, because if you think about like what like the evil that the AI Superborg villain can do to us and all that stuff, really the only salvation is God. So it's best to invest in God now, you know, and the miracle of God. That's kind of like the story of Passover is that Egypt had so much control over the world, and also like ancient technology too. Like it says in the Kabbalah that there were 10 forms of magic that were given to the world. Like they're called kishuf. It's about the physical it's about the bendings of reality through physical means. It's a like actual form of witchcraft. But like it's like, and Egypt had 9 out of the 10 of them. And it used them to enslave humanity, and like it was like the model slave state of the world, where every human was like a peon plebe to the Pharaoh, and God had and redeemed us then, as a way to like show like that God does save and God can't save us, but we can avert the possibility of having to go through a destruction and rely on God's salvation by doing what is necessary now to recognize God. And that's kind of like how I get over like the whole fear of nuclear holocaust and the destruction of the world and the great reset, because really it's just about our relationship with God. Everything here is about our relationship with God, and that's why it's important to bring God into your life, because it will keep your relationship with, like, for instance, the observer effect or the realities that we choose to live in the multiverse. It will keep you in line with, like, what is the right thing to do, that's going to advance us to that final destiny that the prophet said. Like I said earlier, the prophet kind of like set this like almost like a geographic moment in time where all humanity would boom wake up and this messianic moment would take place and it's all going to be good, so like, what do you say about like consciously creating the age of the Mashiach through our power of choice in the matter of choosing to, do that step forward, that whatever we could do to get there? What do you think about that? Like choosing our way to freedom.
Yeah, I think that's what it is. I think that's what disclosure is. I like to ask people, like, what do you think disclosure is? And I tell people disclosure is us waking up, like collectively, like a
Exactly.
collective understanding
The
of us.
ultimate disclosure.
And I feel like I just went through it a little bit before some other people did. Like, that's the difference between why I can tell those videos are real and a lot of people think they're obviously fake. Well, it's a matter of like, do you understand this physics? And when you do, all of a sudden everything becomes clear. All of a sudden it's like the veil has been lifted and you're like, oh, this is what's going on.
Right.
And actually from that perspective, it becomes more difficult for me in terms of like not falling down the rabbit hole. I've been critical of some of the other conspiracy theory type people, including the ones that were pushing the JFK as an Israel plot thing, where it's like, because you do wonder at some point, like, not about necessarily Israel, but about why was JFK killed and could it have been connected to this advanced technology? I take it from a different angle. I look at it and I go, I've been reading a lot of scientific papers and about a lot of physicists and engineers. And there's a lot of Jewish people that are involved in that. A lot. And not in a bad way, in a good way. Like the ones that help develop all of this physics and stuff out there. So for me, it's like we have to look at it and I go, I want to be allies with the Jewish people because they are the people that help develop all this science to put us in this world we're in now. And we could be literally only living in this world with iPhones and stuff that we have because of this technology. It could be slowly dripping to us. So I agree with you. I think the age of disclosure is like the Truman Show, where it's us realizing, like, when the light falls down from the sky, we're like, oh, this is all fake. Oh, we could be much more advanced than we potentially should be. And then the scary part from the political perspective is, I mean, how do we prevent the Great Reset? There's a lot of societies on this planet that would wipe us all out because their, spiritual teachings tell them they should, and that tell them that that's what the end times, and cults and groups that don't even exist yet, but would form if we were to tell them we have this technology. And they're going to go, we're going to be the ones that bring about the end of the world by creating the black hole bomb that wipes us all out, or whatever. Those are the things that keep me up.
So I think it's all about free will. So I choose to live in this reality and create this reality every morning when I wake up in my beautiful bed and I have my house and I do my life and I do my thing. I make that conscious choice. That is my, that is my input into creation, and by doing so, like I'm engaged in the world in like a series of choices that involve my life, going to work and doing things and being active and productive and whatever. And I'm going through life making these decisions. And it's like all about free will. Everything in life is really just truly about free will and expressions of free will. So that is my faith, actually, is like people confuse me and they say like, oh, he's Jewish. No, my religion is, my Jewish is my race. And Judaism is not my religion. Free will is my religion. And with free will, I choose to follow this book and the Torah and what is written in here. And so that is my faith, is that I choose to follow this, And so Judaism is important to me because Judaism is really the way of this book, but it's important that, like, in the variable outcomes of the patterns of existence that could happen, which is infinite possibilities, kind of like the realm of tohu vavohu, which is like absolute chaos. When it says chaos and void, in the beginning there was chaos, tohu vavohu it's called. And the chaos is just like this realm of like infinite possibilities. Actually, the Bible, if it's not in the Bible, I don't believe it. And I'll tell you something that's in the Bible. It's my chapter 14 of my book. It's so crazy. Like, I describe the entrance into this underground place called Tehom. And Tehom is like the deep. Like when God hovers over the deep, he mitrafechet el Tehom. He's like hovering over the deep. This is like this place. It's called the deep, but it's called Tehom. But really, Tehom is like this, like, it is like the place of the multiverse where everything is happening all at once. And like entry into that place can like completely change and determine this world. And the ancients built these humongous gates to guard this place. And like I described the gates in the book, but like there's like things embedded into this world that are like quite mystical, and physics kind of like bends the realm of reality and allows for like kind of this divine experience that impedes on our free choice. Like, what are we going to do with these equations? Are we going to make weapons of destruction, or are we going to make unlimited energy? And that's a matter of our free choice. And part of free choice is the conscious awareness and the need to spread it to others, because the larger the human consciousness that collectively chooses, especially in regards to living in the realm of the Mashiach, the quicker the reality can form and collapse into this world through the observer effect, through all of us. There's like this certain determination of our faith. And that realm is devekut. It's spiritual adoration to God. It's like living in infinite possible realities all the time, which is tehom, but it's like, also in this world. And, all these worlds are created and they're existing like simultaneously around us all at once. And I think that's why the Jews are persecuted, to be honest with you. Like, what really drives anti-Semitism? And I think that it's found at the highest levels of leadership that exist in the world. And that's where it originates. It's like a trickling effect. And it has to do with kind of like this ultimate vilification, from deicide to nuclear destruction to whatever it is. Kind of like, but really at the source of it is what is our eternal relationship that is to God, that is bound in this book, that they want to that those forces want to try to prohibit the collapse of that reality, which is the prophets and the prophecies of the Mashiach and the coming of the age of the Mashiach, which involves eternal life, whether it comes through like some sort of technology, or whether I believe it comes through a different realm than technology. I believe in the realm of miracle. And I think, because the red heifer, the stuff, I have the ashes right here, a bag of ashes of the red heifer. I keep them by my side. And part of the impediment of our ability to see this world and with our eyes and perceive it with our senses is something called tumat mavet, which is the impediment of death. And if anybody has ever touched a dead corpse, or if anybody, like, it's contagious. So if you shake hands with somebody or hug a relative, or it's like there's kind of like this collectivity of death. And so this is a tremendously driving force to conquer this death. But this collectivity of death is like kind of like outlined as like the ultimate free choice. The binding of oneself to God is like the ability to overcome this and live forever with God in this different reality where, there's books like, for example, like here, I'll give you a little tour really quick. This is like my desk, right? So here's the Tehillim. This book right here, Mesilat Yesharim, this
Hmm.
book is like an amazing book of how to be. The Way of God, the Book of Reincarnations. There's all sorts of different books on uh, on physical reality that that kind of like describe this world of, and explain how to navigate oneself through it, with our free will to these desired outcomes of like a moral world, for example, like a
You know,
world built on morality.
I think
You
that's
know,
super important because we need a world built on morality. I think that's extremely important when we're talking about nuclear holocaust for sure. But also because I think a lot of people's minds aren't going to be able to accept a lot of this information. And I think people are going to struggle to compartmentalize it and reconcile it with their current existing worldview. I think that when you look at the UFO phenomenon, they
and
know that this can happen. And this is why they're trying to tell us about aliens, because I think from their perspective, their plan is I open people's mind up to the idea of aliens, and this kind of softens the blow. As opposed to my perspective, which is like, hey, man, just tell the truth about free energy and doomsday weapons and teleportation, whatever you got going on. And yes, people are going to freak out. But this is where we need people like you and other, honestly, faith leaders that I've spoken to. You're not the only one that I've spoken to that can really help enlighten people about how, like, this, how do you bring this into your worldview without it kind of shattering your entire psyche, essentially.
So, like I was saying earlier about this red heifer thing that I'm a part of with the ashes and stuff, it's like so viral. I mean, we're talking about like just my clips alone on the red heifer are like over 30
Yeah.
million. You
Wow.
know what I'm saying? 30 million views on this one thing. And there's like other videos on the red heifer. It's in the hundreds of millions and it's in the billions of views.
Yeah.
Like the red heifer conscious awareness, right? So this formula, when sprinkled on somebody, is supposed to remove the impediment of death, like this conscious awareness of death, so that like people can perceive the world for what it truly is without having to larp over what is a potential finality that that isn't true because it hasn't happened, and it's a potential of it's a potential happening, which happens uh, to most people. But in the Jewish tradition, there's actually 9 humans
Hmm.
that are still alive, that are considered still they have they physically walk the world. There's actually, I've done extensive research on this. There's actually 2 that still walk the world to this day. One is a male and one is a female, and they go in between, um, in this world and the world of the next, the world of the deceased. But the world of the Mashiach is the world of the fusion of all the lives that are all compiled, because Judaism believes in reincarnation. And through this collectivity of our choices, through all of our actions of all of our lives, it builds up over the course of years. And on the Jewish calendar, we're in the year 5786. And that is from the expulsion of Eden. And so, like, that's basically like humanity's scope of where we are in the timeline of waking up to the true understanding of free will. And that involves the complete bending of physics, the complete manipulation of time and space through replicatable means, replicatable in any given situation, which is very scientific, whether it's through a psychic power or whether it's through a physical power, the reality will bend to produce an outcome that the inputs, the overall input is greater than the inputs, whether it's you know manipulating steel and putting train cars on it to transport goods, or whether it's about manipulating electrons on a on
Mhm.
a graphite board, there's physical ways to manipulate the energy, and there's also psychic ways. And I kind of feel like that ultimate reality, that like the highest level of this, like there is like a ultimate understanding of the universe and creation. There is like an ultimate kind of like messianic self that everybody does have an ability to access. Like they're of like understanding free will, our place in the universe, in the multiverse, and in by that, like the physics and what we're capable of doing, and while we're here, and maybe we'll be here forever. God willing, we'll be here forever. I mean, I'm trying to create something meritorious enough that God and the angels above decide they want to spare me and keep me around longer. Maybe I'm entertaining to them. But that's
I'm
why I like to study about the immortals, because like in this, if it's in this book, I believe it to be true. And I look
Mhm.
for the most fringe, crazy things I could find in this book. And I find about the immortals and bending reality and prophecy and nevuah and reincarnation and this idea of human immortality and living forever. And so I understand these things as physical concepts that apply to my everyday life,
Yeah,
So
and I think they probably seem abstract for a lot of people, but I'm a believer personally. I mean, reincarnation. I've always been drawn towards that idea, and I personally believe that our bodies are essentially a receiver for our souls, which we're like tapped into, which would mean that our souls are external, which would mean that we should be able to reincarnate to some degree. From other perspective of other ESP, the types of psychic phenomenon, I don't think it's a coincidence that Hal Puthoff was involved in remote viewing and then flipped over to 0 point energy, which seems like a completely different shift. But when you realize that at the heart of it is this understanding of consciousness, where consciousness comes from, that there might be this connection to 0 point energy and consciousness, then I think that, looking at it from the biblical perspective of things that seemed like miracles now seem to have, you can have a physical explanation. And the theory that I think will break through probably in the next 5 or 10 years is going to be ER equals EPR. This is a conjecture in physics
can you
that,
explain what those words are? ER.
yeah, ER stands for Einstein Rosen, which
Oh,
means an
Einstein,
Einstein
Rosen,
Rosen
and
bridge, as in a wormhole.
Posner, right?
It doesn't necessarily have to be plasma, but a wormhole is
No,
just a
no. Is
geometric.
it Einstein, Rosen, and Posner? What's the
Oh, Podolsky, that's for
Poldowski?
EPR.
Right,
So
right, right. I
there's
knew it was
the
some
idea
other
is
Jewish name.
ER equals EPR, which is a wormhole is the same as quantum entanglement, which is
Hmm.
Einstein-Rosen bridge. Wormhole is equivalent to Einstein-Podolsky-Rosen quantum entanglement. And therefore, what we're saying is that when we see this entanglement, where we see, okay, this atom over here, if I change this over here, this changes, we're saying that's a wormhole. That's a little tiny wormhole that we don't see, but that's what's connecting these 2 points, is a little wormhole. In fact, we might be able to say that a black hole is actually just a wormhole too, just a giant wormhole. And so if we look at the world from that perspective, now we can explain why quantum entanglement exists. It exists because when we take Einstein's gravity equations and we go to infinity or go to zero, we get these singularities that we call black holes. We realize that space itself is a medium. And if you push the medium aside, just like we do with a submarine underwater, you can get thrust. That's a warp drive. So I think that these physical theories, that we have scientific papers out there, like Miguel Alcubierre's warp drive metric was him just taking Einstein's general relativity and messing with the numbers and realizing, wait a minute, we should be able to make a warp drive where I'm just floating freely and I don't feel anything at all, just like I'm sailing along. So we've had the papers out there. That was 1994. We've had them for 30 years. I think we're undergoing this awakening now where we're looking back at these scientific papers and we're going, wow, some of this stuff is real. Maybe a lot of it is. And what are the implications of this for our everyday, for our geopolitics, for our society, for our civilization? And what are the implications of this for our spirituality? And this is what I think the great awakening of disclosure is going to end up being. And for some people, that will be aliens. That will be, oh, the aliens exist and we live in a universe filled with life. And for other people, they'll look at that and they'll go, that's no big deal. God created humans, God created other beings too. That's no inconsistency there. So, I think that the more we talk about it, the easier it'll be to palate at the end of the day. Because the other side of it will be, okay, we have this new understanding of the universe. Why was this being kept hidden from us? How long has this been kept hidden from us? How long have they known that there are other civilizations? How long have we known that we can
And
do this
thus gets to
technology?
the persecution of the Jews.
Leads to the persecution of all of humanity. But also, of course, I think that, the Jewish people play a big role in this, just from a discovery perspective. But yeah, I mean, if you want to get really
Well,
interesting with
think
it, it's
about
like,
like the prophecy about like how many
yeah.
people live their life because they want the Messiah to come. Like I mean, just think about that. Like that is just like a Jewish construct. Like
Mm-hmm.
that is a prophecy. That is like something that was like almost spoken into creation, but on such a high level that it like had a probabilistic probability of happening 100%. Like a specific thing. And like suppose there's prophecies that have been fulfilled and there's prophecies that are going to happen. And like that is like a kind of like a statistical probability of 100%. And I believe, and that's the faith that you have in just this book. And like when it comes to the Mashiach, I think about like the age of Mashiach, and I think about the technology of the Mashiach, and like I think there's this book. It's a secret book. It's called Sefer HaRefuah. It was originally written by Shlomo HaMelech, King Solomon, and it involves like different things, minerals, elements, stuff like that, of healing, and it involved like how to regrow ligaments, stuff like that. And there's been people who have accessed this book, and it's like this ancient knowledge of science, if you of medicine, but kind of like this like application of the physical world around us to the betterment and the extension of our life, to heal our ailments, to be able to rest our bodies and live wonderful lives without pain. Like there's a science behind living forever that like eventually leads to living forever. So and the ultimate reality is that I don't know if it can come through medicine, because they're always like dissecting humans to learn their science. They're like obsessed in the energy of death, but that's why the ashes of the red heifer are so important, because this book is telling us that this it removes that impediment of like this like kind of like conscious pattern that eventually leads somebody to their death. This repetitive motion of maybe dumb science, for example. You know, like science that is incomplete, like a medical science, like for example, like withholding cures to medicine or whatnot. And so, like if you think of the age of disclosure being like which the Zohar says is the precursor to the age of the Messiah, you see this kind of correlation, and there's a practical reality to it, which is technology. So and the government has been long invested in patents and owning certain patents to certain technologies and secret technologies and Area 51 Roswell's, and
Well,
I'll tell.
if we're gonna make it realistic, I mean, sure, the Area 51 stuff is real. I mean, that's obviously Bob Lazar put Area 51 on the map. But the real thing that is hiding the technology is the Invention Secrecy Act, 1951. Invention Secrecy Act. We come out of this Invention Secrecy Act and say, okay, if anything infringes on national security, we can just send you a letter, and now you're not allowed to commercialize it. Because here's the question: a lot of people wonder, is like, okay, if this is real, and a lot of people were probably, sitting there thinking in the chat, a little far out there. How could this be real? People would leak it. I would say, number one, it was way easier for them to hide than what people are giving the government credit for. They just had to compartmentalize it. Very few people know. And the people that know, they have NDAs. They're written in such a way where if they break those NDAs, they go to prison. Best case scenario, they go to prison.
Right.
And then from the scientific perspective, the way science works, the scientific method, the study of observable reality, is that we need data to be able to come to our conclusions. So as long as they never present the data, the data stays secret, then the public never knows. Now, do China and Russia and adversarial nations know? Yeah, they probably do know because they have spies and what have you, and they can figure out the truth. But the public stays generally dumbed down on these things. And this is why I say that the science of all of these things is out there. The papers that I talk about are out there, but they just don't get the attention that they probably deserve. And it won't be until people either understand that MH370 videos are real, or we get other phenomenon events like that where we're actually seeing the usage
or
of
even just plain government disclosure. I mean, like the
Yeah.
JFK files were like literally the blowing the lid, the smoking gun. It talked about different nations of Ebes, extraterrestrial beings, that live in different places in the universe. It talked about all sorts of things. It's 80,000 pages long. It's insane. And no one wants to talk about it because they only wanted to talk about it for like a year because they wanted to use it to say that the Jews killed JFK. And then when it like was the ultimate disclosure on supernatural activity, they just shut down to it and pivoted to the next Jew thing that they could do. And it's been like Jew thing after Jew thing after Jew thing after Jew thing after Jew thing. Candace Owens in your ear, in your ear, in your ear, in your ear, force feed on your feed, force feed on your feed. Your ex is overpopulated with like crazy anonymous Groiper accounts that are from other countries, and they're all anonymous,
That was a fun thing this week, though. First seeing MTG step down, and then
that was
all
crazy.
they reveal out of nowhere. They reveal everybody's country of origin on their X account, and then we see all these people that are America first, and they're not even Americans. They're like from everywhere else in the world. It really makes you wonder about just the conversation on the internet in general, like how much of it's really real. And this is why, I tell people at the beginning is like, you shouldn't just take what I say at face value, because so much of what people push on the internet is fake. And even the people that are real people, like you see, like we saw there was a big scandal today or yesterday where a bunch of some of those same accounts were all posting some betting website stuff, like clearly a paid promotion. It's like, oh, can you believe this crazy bet this person won? Check it out here.
Right, exactly.
Right. And you're going, these are the same people, and they're like saying that everybody's
it's against his own team.
Yeah.
That is the X timeline that is like, that's the part of the X timeline that is like, and now a word from our sponsor.
Those are the people saying that you're paid $7,000 by the Jews to say something, and you're like,
the Jews.
This is what makes my job difficult, though, right? It's because like we're talking about real physics, real science, real stuff, and a real missing plane,
real contributions to humanity.
Yeah, it gets diluted down.
Have you ever? I was going to ask you actually. Have you ever met a Nobel Prize winner in science?
I don't think so. Now that I think about it, great question though. Actually, but the thing about
I actually
Nobel
met
Prize,
one once. I met Robert Aumann, and like Robert Aumann, game theory and mathematics. He's a mathematician.
Yeah.
And like. The reason I bring it up is because like he had like aura. You know what I'm saying? Like crazy aura. And I've been in the room with like really powerful people before.
Yeah.
And like heads of state and stuff like that. And the most powerful aura I've ever seen on a human observing them is President Donald Trump, without a doubt.
Yeah.
I've been in the room with him, and the aura, it like bends time. Like I saw it above his head. Yeah. Like he's like bending space-time constantly. His existence bends space-time. It's like a really weird phenomenon. And it's every time I've seen him in the room, it's been like that. The first time I saw him in the room, I felt like I was in a digital topia. It was so weird. I'm telling you, it was like right when he was elected, I was so VIP at the inaugural ball, and it was in the very beginning, before everybody tried to like, it was establishment figure after establishment, Rex Tillerson and Jeff Sessions and all these people, blah, 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 mistrusting even that guy. What was his name? It was like his friend from New York. He was like the spokesman for the president for like 11 days or something like that.
Yeah, I can't remember.
Caramucci.
Yeah.
Anthony Caramucci. Anyways, it was crazy for a minute. You know what I'm saying? The level of betrayal. But I think like it all revolves around disclosure. And disclosure, 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 disclosure. And the
Yeah.
infinite win for 2026 and 2028 is disclosure.
Yeah,
And
I
to
think
be the
Trump knows.
disclosure president. I think we're moving into the age of disclosure immediately. And somebody is going to be the disclosure president. And so, like, I have my own speculations. I said it to him, and like, he told me don't speak about it. And so I'm not going to speak about it. I'm not even going to mention it right now. But I was like, it's not even on Kalshi. I'll just say the name that I'm thinking of. And Marjorie Taylor Greene is on there for potential presidential choices on Kalshi. And Thomas Massey is on there for presidential choices on Kalshi. And they're all going to run because Kalshi said. And like Kalshi is like feeding these
They'll run.
weird bets, like you were just saying, into the auto feed, disrupting, the social conversation that is like heavily being tilted into anti-Semitism by like these like completely ambivalent sources that are mostly followed by anonymous accounts that are taken so seriously, even though they're completely anonymous accounts. It's like an extreme violation of the freedom of the press.
Yeah, and it makes it really difficult. And this is part of the reason too why it's so easy to hide stuff, because there's so much BS that things get buried under. So this is part of the reason why I ended up speaking out about a lot of that, is that like I was like, look, guys, you're gonna do a grift or whatever, that's cool, but I want people to understand I'm not part of that. That's not what I'm doing. It's not what I've ever been doing related to this. I'm not trying to sell stuff. I'm not one of those accounts that's going, what do you think about this? Isn't this crazy, right? And you see like, them always do that kind of thing that's out there. But a last thought, and I want to kind of wrap up here pretty soon. I've appreciated this conversation, though. It's been
It's been
great.
amazing, actually. My conversations, they're all fantastic. My guests are wonderful. Like I never get to go into like I do a lot the Kabbalah. I try to weave Kabbalah wherever I can
Yeah.
without going overkill on it. But like the reason why I do this show is for God, because I feel like I'm like a messenger for him. Like
Mm.
I want the world to know what he wants for the world. And like there's minus like the entire story of the Bible, there is like like a descriptive a descriptive outcome that he wants, that is found from the Bible, and it involves like the things that you want: personal freedom, ultimate liberty, like all the goodness of humanity, no being able to earn your livelihood without strenuous labor, like
Mm.
basic human rights, stuff like that. There are ways for the optimal production of the human being. There are things that contribute to the optimal production of the human being. And there are forces that want to try to limit the human being's ultimate potential. And so like we're seeing in real time, like God used the fate of the world to knock people out, like Marjorie Taylor Greene. What do you think is going to happen next on X? Do you think like what's your take on Elon Musk also? Like I know everybody wants to
Yeah.
spec maybe we shouldn't talk about our host. We should just talk about what's going to be the next thing. Like what's Ian
Uh,
Carroll going to lapdog Candace Owens on next?
yeah, I can't even speculate on what the next fake thing is going to be. But I mean, as you see now, it's all like the French are conspiring with to kill Candace Owens. No, I don't even.
Did
That's
you
not
see
even
she
entertaining.
included in that? She said a second tweet and she's like the French and the Israelis and the Israelis.
It's always got to go back to Israel. It's like the meme of them taking the dots together to make the Hebrew
Yeah,
star.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Come
yeah.
on, man.
It has to be the Jews, mein Führer.
Even when it was the Egyptians on the plane, she's like, "It's the Egyptians. They're
Yeah,
they're
yeah,
just
yeah,
it's
yeah.
the Jews using the Egyptian plane." No, I
It's
mean,
crazy.
I think that more interesting is like
We're
the idea of
supernatural.
but does like Trump know about this stuff? I think
He
the answer
has
is Trump
to.
does. Yeah, he's got to know. Like
Yeah.
presidents don't necessarily have to know, but if they get exposed to it, they have the clearance because they have the highest clearance in anybody. So Trump knows, and the way he talks about some of this stuff and talks about the science and the way he's very coy with Joe Rogan tells me that he knows about it. But actually, I think about some of the ideas that you mentioned, which is like, what would God want for this world? Like, I
Mm.
think about that a lot because it's so profound that this
Mm.
technology exists and that it's not just science fiction, and what it means for the greater civilization. And my conclusion is actually the same conclusion that I think you came to, which is free will. God wants us to choose. God created us in his image because he wants us to choose, and we were created flawed as flawed beings. So whether or not we survive this great reset, or this challenge, you could say, that it faces us in the future, I think nobody knows except for us. Like, we're the ones who's supposed to determine that. Personally, my belief is that I think that we haven't destroyed ourselves yet since we invented nuclear weapons in the 40s or what have you. So I think that in the end, good wins out. I think it's a close battle, but I think in the end, good wins out.
A nuclear apocalypse would appear in this book. That's what I believe.
Mm.
And so, like, when it comes to like the Mashiach will happen because it says so in this book, and that has like so much to do with free energy and like this like kind of like total expansion of being, and like this robust awareness of God, really, because God is the architect of all these great powers. If you think about physics and ultimate, expansion of physical things like machines and things that we could assemble to replicate whatever it is, that whatever force that God created. And you mentioned you wanted to wrap this up, so I'll shift to three things in this book that are listed. Is it says that God rules the world through three he carries out his actions in our world. He created a world of free will that like we could like, for instance, reject him entirely or even choose the wrong thing, or like we could be misled. There's so many different levels to awareness, and so in this, God is trying to steer the forces through three things. One is called Malachim, which are angels. These are classes of immortals, but not limited to the entirety of all immortals. And that's not to say that an immortal can't die. Just an immortal will live forever unless it's killed. So it's a different perspective. And then there's the Shadim, which are the demon worlds. And then there's something called the Kohot. And the Kohot are very interesting to me because those are called transcendental forces. And these are some of these like scientific principles that we're sharing today that like kind of bend and create reality. On one, you have the angels and the demons both being piloted by God's will because they're devoid of free will. And then you have these transcendental forces of nature, and then man is left to choose. And so, like, these are ways that God changes and interacts reality in order for him to guide reality into his desired outcome that is listed in this book. It's like a very complex process that he created that involves species of immortals that don't have free will, and that human beings, we have the most amount of free will out of all of God's creatures, and that is what is called B'Tselem Elohim, in his reflection, in his image, in his likeness. It's really in his likeness, in his essence. We are of the species of God, that we were created to be his partner, because really God is creating physicality right now. And part of our choices in this cosmic process that involve linear time, that's why it's the year 5786, is that we're revealing this ultimate reality of free will. And so free will is really like the what it's all about. And through it, we learn to have the ultimate relationship with God, whether in a limited sense that somebody can't see God because they're not looking in the right places, or whether everybody sees God either at the end of life or at the place where we begin to live forever. So at that place, where we are able to bring free will into immortality, unlike all the other species that were created, thus proving that God truly created physicality under free will, that it doesn't collapse itself and choose to not exist. to be free, you have to have the opportunity to choose to not be free and to like submit to whatever it is, that even a personal thing.
Hmm.
Anyways, this is such a deep well, and I'm glad that we got a chance to talk about this stuff and I got to
Yeah.
share some of these concepts. A lot of these are in my book. Most of them are in my book, or at least the beginnings of them are in my book. And I do consider it some sort of revelation, because Amazon gave me they gave me three categories: number one in Torah, number one in Kabbalah, and number one in quantum theory. And then like after a while they like took away the quantum theory for a while, but I still have screenshots when they listed me as number one on quantum theory. And I was like, wow, that's flattering, to be
That's
able to
awesome.
weave the world of God and Kabbalah into the physics and say to the people in the physics, hey, God is all around you guys. Like, you guys are crazy immersed in God. Just you got to peel it back, open your eyes, and just see how much greater potential lies ahead. And I'd like to invite you too to get involved. I just had Dinesh. I pitched it to Dinesh D'Souza, and he was like the first to take it, to get involved in the red heifer stuff, because he's like super faithful in his
Yeah.
religion. And then like I pitched it to James Lindsay. Both of these guys were like, "Oh yeah, I'm totally down." And this was like all on air. And like, so you'd be like the guy who's like not a Christian, like experiencing this removal of free will from him. The impediment of death from his free will, to see if it has any effect on his consciousness or perception, just by having these drops of holy water sprinkled on him in this kind of like this scientific test, like this of the Bible. And it all has to do with consciousness. So like I invite you along on that journey.
Thank
I've
you.
loved this discussion. I want to be respectful to your time. I
No,
have
you're
been like I want to share. If you go, I want to share with you something about quantum entanglement, but I want to give you a chance to say something like super deep. I don't want to like force you off. If you want to stay longer, I just want to say one thing. A couple people I've
fun.
been able to get to stay for over 3 hours. We're at 2 hours and 15 minutes, and I spoke for like 10 minutes before you came or something like that. So, like, kudos to you. You're on the top 5 list of longest podcasts of a guest. But, like, people on that, like, when it's about quantum entanglement, I'll tell you one thing that you said about quantum entanglement. I wanted to expand on the concept of the consciousness, is that one can be quantumly entangled to multiple things, and one can create quantum entanglements that didn't exist before or existed through past lives or anything like that, and like bind people and do strategic weird things with it. And so, like, one of my podcasts, I had David Duke for 3 hours. And I felt like really like my powers of quantum entanglement, like I call it like macrokinesis. I felt like it was almost like I grabbed him spiritually by the threads of creation and chained him to the floor and like sat him in front of me for 3 hours. And like, I swear, because like he came and Ethan Ralph will say the details, like, he was the moderator of that debate. It was supposed to be 36 minutes. There was like crazy rules on, but there's been a couple 3 hours. James Lindsay's in that category. A ton of people come back for many episodes, and I really would love to have you for more episodes. This has been a totally awesome conversation. I hope people clip this and like it gets logged in scientific journals, because it's either us or Neil Tyson deGrasse, folks. But either way, science
I'll
will
take
prove
us every
God's
time.
existence.
Yeah, I just want to add on to, there is a connection between this idea of quantum mechanics and spirituality. So I don't think it was necessarily a mistake that they combined quantum mechanics with your book. And, I think they did a disservice by disconnecting it. And this is the part where I think I want people to be more open to the idea of physics and spirituality being connected, because I think we're going to find there is a deeper connection than what we've been led to believe for most of our lives and what we're taught. So
It
if this advances or even wakes up one additional person, I will have considered it a win. And I think that we are moving towards that age of disclosure, as you mentioned, where we will get to that time where suddenly there's a flip. And actually, I've spoken about this a lot, where I say that the way that it works in the real world is that all of a sudden there's a collective understanding. We get to a certain percentage, or let's just say, I don't know what the percentage, 50% of the people now believe in a thing. And now all of a sudden there's like a flip that happens, where
mm,
all of a sudden it's like the default state. And I think that's what we're moving towards here. And I think it's going to happen in all of our lifetimes. So everybody should buckle up, get ready.
I
So
think
thank you
it's
very much.
honestly, I think it's the sprinkling of the red heifer ashes and the removal of death from our eyes so that we could see the real world for what it is. And I think on the other side, there's going to be like crazy, crazy things. Like people at the highest levels of consciousness are going to be able to see like different paradigms taking place. Like imagine a world that is like devoid of death or the impediment of death or the sadness of death or the reoccurring sadness of death or something like that. Like whatever is connected to that energy. But I really think that we are heading to that disclosure, and it's going to be super hot, and it's going to continue to be hot, and it's going to involve quantum entanglement. And I look forward to the things that will quantumly entangle myself with, moving into this kind of like world of higher free will. And I think like embrace the Messiah, man. It's not what
Mhm.
you think it is. It's not like obedience to something. It's like an act of free will and devotion. That's what we were created. And so, I remember what I was going to say to really wrap up, these
Mhm.
thoughts is
Yeah.
you were talking about like, all these quantum things being brought in. And I had this revelation, like it needs a phrase. And what would the phrase be? It would be the quantum experience. And like this quantum experience would be kind of like this, like leveling up through the multiverse with supernatural powers of perception, even if that just means the ability to bend reality through, machines and physicality or something like that. Kind of like this disclosure awakening point that takes place that, really bends the space time continuum. And it says in books like Derech Hashem by the Ramchal, Rabbi Moshe Chaim Luzzatto, that in this time and space, the Mashiach, the human body won't even resemble itself. It's going to transform itself. Like the entire physical world eventually transforms itself when death is eliminated from the equation and the immortality factor begins. That like humans will grow wings if they need to, like it'll be like a different paradigm, a different reality, like a video game reality almost. But reality. It will be reality, not a video game. Like art imitates life, life imitates art. Anyways,
Absolutely.
Ashton Forbes, this has been one of my favorite shows. Thank you very much, my friend. I hope you come again soon and tell us, depart us with something. The floor is yours.
Um, disclosure is coming, guys, and get ready for 0 Point Energy Disclosure 2025. Next year is going to be the year of aneutronic fusion. We're going to be pushing to get fusion out there. My personal belief is that there's a connection between 0 Point Energy and fusion, and that's why we haven't gotten fusion yet. And then we'll potentially find there is an extra input of energy as well. So if you're one of those people that wants to know, hey, well, if you're right about all this secret technology, what's the next big thing? Aneutronic fusion direct energy conversion. That's what you should look out for. Follow me at JustXAshton on Twitter. Check out my YouTube channels, my live streams, where I go into depth on all these things as well. Thank you very much for having me on your show, Adam.
God bless, brother. You'll be back soon. Thank you very much for coming, giving us all so much time. Thank you for the host who put this together. There was a guy who literally put this together. He's like one of my favorite people on the internet. God bless his soul. And he sees, the power. He saw the quantum entanglement being the Vav, the connector. He's like, oh, if I could just bring these two things together. And now all these variables of outcomes could possibly take place now that we know each other. So God bless you. You should be blessed by God for this introduction. Ashton, nice to meet you, brother. Peace.
Peace.
Enjoy. Ladies and gentlemen, you heard it here. The multiverse is happening. The Mashiach is coming. Dun da da da. Donald Trump is the trumpet. Dun da da da. And Israel is the vehicle of God. Dun da da da. The Mashiach is coming. It's going to be amazing, guys. It's going to take place in Jerusalem. It's going to take place in the land of Israel. It's going to be all over the earth, really. But it is going to be a transcendent world. And that's the greatest secret that exists. I encourage you all to buy my book and read chapter 14. I show physical secrets of the world, things that I have disclosed from the Kabbalah, that have never been disclosed because nobody thought to disclose it, and nobody was really in a position to disclose it to the Gentile world anyway. Until now, really, with the invention of all this technology. Because the Kabbalah had to be secret. They were trying to kill off the Jews so that they could limit this knowledge of the bending of physical reality, of the infinite mortality, which is immortality, of the infinite immortality that takes place to change our entire physical existence so that we could really live an entirely new existence, one that hasn't been brought before. So in chapter 14 of my book, I show physical places on the earth that actually transform it, secret places you've never heard of. Go buy my book on Amazon, Ad Shiloh, The Blueprint for the Final Awakening. I will show it to you guys on Amazon so you get it. It's really important that you buy my book and you read it, because that's how we're going to stop this thing. That's how we're going to save the world. Okay. Ad Shiloh, The Blueprint for the Final Awakening. Boom. There it is, folks, right on that screen. Go buy the book. Find out the secret hidden chamber in the earth that is guarded inside of the Holy Land. Why Israel is important. Why the Jews controlling the land is important. It doesn't talk about this in my book, folks, but it's so clear why it's important that the Jews control the land, because this is the type of... I reveal stuff that is in the land that nobody knows about. A secret portal to a world called Tehom. And it's in my book. Go buy it. It's awesome. It's awesome Jew, folks. It's awesome Jew. That's how awesome. And the Bible is like really the revelation of God. I say the Bible, and I really mean the Tanakh. I don't like saying Bible, but I know I speak to a Gentile audience. And so the Bible is important. But it comes from the word Babel. With Bavel, it's almost hints at the Talmud, actually. Talmud Bavli, you know. But the Tanakh is really the 24 books of the Mikra. And that is the physics of this world. Prophecy, in the age of prophecy, in that time, the knowledge and the understanding of the universe and the laws of the universe, which are called the mitzvot. The laws of the universe are called the mitzvot. And every mitzvah is connected to a physical law of the universe. And human beings have an ability to choose through the mitzvot, either to do them, a mitzvot ta'aseh, something you do. There's 248 of those. And then there's a mitzvah lo ta'aseh, a thing that you don't do. And there's 365 of those. That is the gates of free will, my friends. That is what the system is all about, really. That is what we're called here to do, is express free will. Jews and Gentiles, we have different roles in the expression of free will. Only so that it could be maintained inside of humanity, God had to imbue it inside of something physical inside of humanity. And that was the Jewish people. And it took place at the binding of the giving of the Torah, which was the wedding of God to the Jewish people. This is a fundamental law of physics that you have to understand, is God's devotion to the Jewish people. He loves us. Even through our hardship, he blesses us with the greatest of revelations, the most profound of experiences, because we truly know that being with him is the ultimate experience. And we know the path to be with God. We could teach it. We could show you how to be close to God in a real, tangible, even scientific way, one would say. The mitzvot are the physical binds of reality. And everything that happens is a result of the choices that we make, given a variety of circumstances and the need to either do a mitzvah ta'aseh, something you do, or mitzvah lo ta'aseh, something you don't do. You know, to not do something that you're not supposed to do. Like, don't be gay, for example. Someone might be born gay. It might be like the most difficult thing for them, but they have to choose not to do it. Well, let's say murder even. Somebody could be born a violent person, and they could it could be about restraining their anger. It's a different force of the physical world. And that anger could lash out at another, the classic story of Cain and Hevel. And the ultimate consequence of suffrage could exist. It could be a horrible thing. It's very sad, the outcomes of such, for one to strike another. That's why I discourage things like the Jake Lang thing of the slapping the bacon to the Quran. It's like, just talk about it like a civil person, and then don't go suing everybody afterwards. That's just crazy. You know, that is just crazy. And since I brought the conversation down to this lower level, the question is, do I keep it here? Do I talk more about free will? Do I talk more about the age of the Mashiach and the coming of the future of the world of the Messiah? I could keep going. I do this every show. I want to talk about this stuff. This is the stuff that I want to talk about the most. And like, I'm glad that Ashton came today because, like, seriously, there's a physical application of the Mashiach. And scientists should start to study it. The Mashiach and like the things of the Mashiach, like the ashes of the red heifer. There's so many ashes of the red heifer, folks. It's happening. And then there's additional red heifers too, because some people are like, no, it might not be kosher. And so there's like, okay, here's some more red heifers. Let's go do more. There's a whole red heifer farm now. And I could get them, actually. I could get them, seriously. If any of you have farmland and you want red heifers, pure-blooded red heifers that might be able to birth red heifers, I could get you those cows. They're expensive. And I'm not going to lie. But DM me, because I'm going to take a profit. I'm not selling you a cow for, you know, what I get it for. That's for sure, because those are expensive cows. But if you have land, I could get you a male and a female. That's all you need to get started. Red Heiferville, grow your own flock. Within a few years, you will have absolutely pure red heifers with this flock. That's more of the thing, physical application. You know, it's like, yo, welcome to the ranch. You know what I'm saying? Like, let's get some red heifer going. It's a mythological creature. It is the Bible, Numbers 19. It has an entire chapter in the Bible dedicated to it. Some people, their contribution to the Bible is very small. Some it's huge. Some it's massive. The Torah, I should say. Jews that contributed to the Torah, culminating in the fate of the Jewish people, really. Culminating in the fate of the Jewish people as outlined by the Torah and the writings of the prophets. The writings of the prophets and just, yeah, the Bible. What you guys call the Bible without the Jesus stuff. And even the Jesus stuff can give you perspective on certain things in this new world of the Messiah, like eternal life, for example. That's something that you guys believe that Jesus is coming back to do, to bring back eternal life. And I'm here to tell you that eternal life is something that we collectively get to. And that's one of the reasons why I named my book Ad Shiloh, because it's the most hopeful part of the Bible. Because it says, I read, the scepter will not actually, this is going to be so cool. I'm going to read from an item at my store. Check this out, guys. Okay, so I have this store, right? And like I just put it up here so I could make gag t-shirts and stuff like that. It's actually quite expensive to run the store, I'm not going to lie. I don't really care about it cuz it's funny cuz I could do like random shirts, like I'm not going to show you guys everything, but like one of the ones that I made back in the day when I was like a split personality, Adam King, awesome Jew, nobody knows, secret Messiah action going down. I made a sweater. And this sweater contains this quote from the Bible. Here it is, the images. There's the hoodie, the back. And then this is the front. That's the front. And then this is the back. The scepter shall not depart from Judah, nor a scholar from among his descendants, until Shiloh comes. Ad Shiloh. That's the name of my book. That's why I have this, guys. This is why I made this the name of my book. I made this the name of my book because this is really important to me. It's the thing that gives me the most hope in the Bible, like I said. The scepter shall not depart from Judah, nor a scholar from among his descendants, ad Shiloh, until Shiloh comes, and his will be an assembly of all peoples. Genesis 49:10, Vayechi. I love this verse of the Bible because it's about like this collectivity, this collective consciousness. You could get this at my store if you guys want. She looks cool in it. He looked cool in it too. You could get this at my store. I don't know how much it is, but it's very cool if you want it. $62.50 for a large too. Yep, $62.50 for a large. Comes in all sizes. It's a great gift for the holiday because it's about the Messiah and everything like that. I think it could be really cool. I also have another cool one I'll show you guys really quick because the holidays are coming. This is like on the store. I think this is the most base thing like you could possibly find. A Christmas stocking, and the Christmas stocking says Jesus celebrated Hanukkah. $30. I think that's so cool, man. Look at that right over your stocking, right over your fireplace. Jesus celebrated Hanukkah, everybody. Or you could get an awesome Jew flag. Get an awesome Jew flag, $65. Wave it loud, wave it proud. Backpack, cell phone, cup, whatever. I never push this stuff, man. I should. It's cool. We have gag gifts. I'll show you the coolest one. I wear it on the show sometimes when I have like controversial people. Let me go to products, page 1. I got doormats, Stomp Out Jew Hate. I even have one, the Adam King Show. Go buy it if you want to buy it. Here it is. The Shabbos Goys. Look, they changed it. They changed it to togies. That's funny. Men's lightweight V-neck, funny Jewish humor. The Shabbos Goys, folks. That's who they are. So I like it because it gets me to do these gag gifts and like, I don't ever want to. I'm not gonna mention this guy anymore. Like he kind of like spazzes out. This guy, right? He just like spazzes out. We don't like. You get a shirt. That's cool too. Maybe I'll get one actually. I'd buy it right now, but I don't want to like put in my credit card information. Let's see if I could. I'm gonna get a large. I'm also like losing weight too. I should say, let's see what white looks like. No, that doesn't look cool. Okay, I guess this is it. Let's see if I could get one of these shirts. Boom. Let's say white. I think the white's cool, right? But I also have a blue. That's cool. Navy, white, sport gray. That's pretty cool. I made sure that it's a V-neck and that it's all cotton because I want to wear it too. What's Heather Irish Green? Yo, they killed it on this. We got to get some new content up. Something like funny that people can buy. I think I'm going to do. Guys, which one should I do? Let's see. Let's look at the chat. Let's see if there's anybody in the chat that can specify. I think we're going to do white. I'm going with the white. We'll call it. Maybe I'll change the name. I wonder if I could change the name. No, I'm not gonna. I'm not gonna be controversial. Oh, don't want to do that. Nope. Oops. Whatever. Doesn't matter. Just doxed myself a little bit. Anyways, I would just say that I definitely carry. So you got to be careful if you're gonna mess with me. But stay back. Yeah, go buy something on the store. I'm gonna buy it really quick just because I do. Oh, that's okay. Let's do that. Boom. We're gonna buy it. Shipping $4.75. Pay now. And we are. Oh yeah, definitely don't. Let's see if I could do Apple Pay. Could I do Apple Pay? Oh no, because I do CBD. There's a CBD product. Let's see. Oh, my card is on there. Boom. Boom. Oh, enter zip code. Where do I put it in? Oh, dude. There we go. Just bought myself an awesome juice shirt. You could go do the same if you want on the store and support the show. It's going to be dope. I need more clothes. I was saying that before. Wow, I'm really taking the conversation down now. But this is how you land a plane, folks. This is how you land a plane. You got to take it down level by level into the practical world, which is like buying a t-shirt. You know what I mean? So, anyways, long story short, guys, I had a great time. This was a great show, very informative. I highly advise you guys that you clip it all up and that you share it with your friends, the parts. Like, change the conversation. You know, like, let it come from Awesome Jew. Like, change the conversation. Let's not talk about the Jews anymore. Let's talk about physics in the new world. Let's talk about the glorious things of the old world and how to get them back again, like magnificent stone buildings and stuff like that. Let's have those conversations. How to have unlimited energy and the ability to do all sorts of amazing things. Freedom, true freedom, physical freedom, societal freedom, true application of like free speech and, you know, no manipulation of the Constitution, no abuse of the Constitution, no finagling and harassment of the Constitution, and no molestation of the Constitution. You know, like we have to not molest the Constitution, which involves not letting religious group, like if a religion is dedicated to our destruction, we have to be able to detest something, but also do it in a way that is not like an affront, like slapping bacon on Bible, on Qurans, or provocations of that nature. Provocations of that nature are it just seems so botted and fake, to be honest with you. Like, seriously, guys, like on TV all over the place, and then he's gonna go sue for hundreds of millions of dollars, all these people and shit. Like, it's crazy. And I think by now we landed the plane because we're back to square one, what we started the podcast about. I was talking about Jake Lang before we went down this whole rabbit hole of the world and the world that we live in, and these are our choices to make. We could choose what we want to do and what paradigm and what world we want to live in. And we could choose like to believe in what things we believe in. We are that free. You can just choose that. You know, so there's just so much, so many hidden mysteries, and I'm here to reveal a lot of them. And there are things that I don't know, but there are things that I do know. So much so that I obsessively wrote them down and made a book. It's like 200 and something pages. Very proud of myself. 267, I think. And I'd really want all of you guys to understand what's coming next, because we don't have a choice in the matter. 267. We don't have a choice in the matter. The like prophecy and quantum entanglement and like the arrival moment, is embedded inside of free will, because it was chosen to be written down and preserved through the ages. It is the quantum moment that will happen by an outcome of inevitabilities that was prophesized, and somehow the storyline, which I believe in some cases are not even fully revealed to the point where somebody could truly understand what's happening in the world of God, that even they are understanding that a Messiah is coming, that the world is that life will become immortal. They have faith in these concepts as they live their life, and the world is changing. So many humans are engaged in this thought, and their lives are really intertwined with these books, even if it's about Jesus in their books. They intertwine themselves through an act of pure desire to this tree of knowledge of affectable and 100% positively going to happen outcomes. And the outcome is what is important. The Torah suggests the way in which the prophecy, the prophecy it shows the way in which it will happen, and then it shows the outcomes. And so the outcomes we learn through the law, that they only revealed to us the worst possible outcome that could possibly happen, that could arrive to that specific logical place in space and time. That is the prophecy coming true. Even the prophecy that's concerning the Messiah. And many prophets, spoken by the same prophets of the Bible themselves, have said these prophecies thousands of years ago. It is the grand moment of faith that humanity had to cling to, and it clung to this story. Everyone did. Even the Muslims, for the amount of defiance they give to the authority of the Torah, still base their entire theology on the events that take place inside of the Torah before they get to Ishmael and to Muhammad. Their entire connection to this world is racial, as they are descended of Ishmael. So are the Armenians, as they're descended of Aramea and Aram, and the ancient Arameans. The children of Haran, the brother of Abraham. They all connect to the storyline of Abraham. It's interesting to note who Terach was, Abraham's father. He was like the Pope of Earth. In that day, the Earth had one religion, and it was entirely corrupted, and he was the Pope of that world. He completely ruled that religion, Abraham's father. And Abraham destroyed his idols in the temple and went left. And left. Lech lecha me'artzecha mibeis avicha. Leave from your land and from the land of your house. And he leaves and he starts this journey that we all believe in. It was through him that the prophets came about, and that storyline, and everybody's like, you must swear to it by everything. Every word in the Bible's true, and they always say that. So even whatever the outcome is of the Bible, so many people are putting their collective human consciousness into that desired outcome already. And the inevitability of that quantum thing happening when even the majority of Earth is engaged in that type of, with this conversation, for this podcast, we'll just call it quantum thinking. And in that quantum thinking, they're already engaged in this process of bringing about this messianic age through this storyline of the Tanakh, this Jewish Messiah, this descendant of the house of David, like this, like against all odds people that formulated themselves back into their own land, Ezekiel 38. They gathered themselves onto the land after all these years. It's like the greatest indigenous people's rights movement that ever existed. It is the ultimate reclamation of tribal lands, Israel. That's why it's important, and that's why it's a part of the Bible, because God demands in the Bible to be served a certain way in the temple even. Nobody's going to do that except the Jews. It's just the way it would. It's just the way. Nobody's volunteering. Only Jews volunteer to do their service to God that way. Nobody else. Everybody says that way is even wrong to do. There's people on the internet that'll be like, oh, it's wrong to do the Old Testament, what the God says. And we're like, no, we're the Jews. We're supposed to. And many Christians are like, no, you got to let the Jews do what they're supposed to do. And a lot of this has to do with the balance of power and the fate of the world and the balance of good and evil and all sorts of things related to the coming of the Mashiach and this golden age of humanity, whereby which the world that we live in is going to, whether you call it quantumly change, but it will physically change. And the outcomes and the variable outcomes that can happen are going to be radically different. Radically different. To the point where it'll hardly be recognizable anymore, the world that we live in. It will be that good, too. It's going to be a completely different existence that we choose to go to. You can only go to there if you choose to go to there. I mean, there is a reckoning point by which if you don't choose to go there, you can no longer choose to go there once it happens, because the happening, the moment, which is the happening, is not determined by our belief, actually. That's the miraculous nature of the event. It's not determined by our belief. It's not determined by our free choice to even believe in this or to trust in this story that was laid out supposedly by this God. But it is that God's arrival, that he chooses himself to deliver himself into this world and to permanently rest his presence. And we could do what we can to make a vessel for him to dwell, and it is through our yearning that we merit those vessels, like the Temple of Jerusalem. That is why it's called the Wailing Wall. We wail on the outside wall, wanting to go in and do our rituals to God, wanting to serve Hashem, our infinite creator, in the way that he outlined in the Bible. We want to do the rituals. We want this. We want this tribal rite of passage with a part of the land that they're not even using. The Al-Aqsa Mosque that they pray in is actually the palace of King Solomon. The Temple Mount, the Dome of the Rock, the Haram al-Sharif, that is the shrine. It's just a shrine. They use it as a shrine. They don't even have anything built on it, just a shrine, a building covering it, so if you go inside, you could see the rock on the floor. They just are showing the rock. It's that important to humanity. And that is the spot that the Jews want to do our service on. It's just a shrine. It has nothing to do with Islam. And according to Islam, the Temple Mount is the third holiest relic. The Al-Aqsa Mosque, specifically, is the third holiest relic of their entire identity, is the Al-Aqsa Mosque, which is the palace of King Solomon. So, understanding this and understanding who's currently residing in the palace, and understanding what God wants, which is to rule the earth from that place that the shrine is on. They consciously knew in their theology that this place contained the essence of where God wants to be, and they left it blank. They just built a shrine around it so you can walk around the naked rock, the pure indigenous soil to this land. And it belongs specifically to the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. That is who that God sits on that throne. And that is in Jerusalem, underneath this spot, which is currently just a shrine, which is what the Jews were given a service to do, so that God's presence will dwell with us, and we will live with him, and he will be a part of our daily occurrence. It is called the Beit HaMikdash, the house of meeting. First, it is referred to as a beit. It is a house. It is God's house. And inside the realm of the Kedosh Kedoshim, only the Kohen goes in there. That is the inner sanctum of God's house. In the outer sanctum, he has the place where Jews do our worship, which is the sin offerings and the thanksgiving offerings and all the different offerings. It's funny, like everybody's like, how could you do animal sacrifice? And then they're out there like literally having Thanksgiving dinner, cooking up a massive turkey. You know what turkey is in Hebrew? It's called hodu. Hodu means thankfulness, to give thanks. Hodu le Hashem ki tov, ki le'olam chazdo. That's hodu, to give thanks to God. Hodu. That's what the word turkey is in Hebrew, is hodu. And it's called Thanksgiving. Thanksgiving is Jewish. Oh my God. Watch Stu Peters not do it. Thanksgiving. I protest Thanksgiving. It's Jewish because of hodu. I'm just kidding, folks. These people are crazy, man. It's like so unreal that it's so crazy and that I deal with all of them. I mean, I've had so many experiences with all of them. It's just mind-boggling. And I pray for the safety of the world, folks. I just want to bring about the age of the Mashiach. You know, that's really my intention with this show and my book and all this free stuff that I do, that I just do for fun. It's like a hobby. You know, I live a private life. You know, I have other areas of my life besides this show. You know, especially my spiritual life, which pilots this show, because I want to reach out to people. I want to talk to people. I want to let people know what the world is really about, what the Kabbalah teaches it's about, not what I think it's about. And you could put the dots together just knowing things. One of the things that I didn't put in my book, but I wanted to bring up to Ashton on today's show, was Hollow Earth, because the Zohar talks about the 7 layers of the earth. It even goes as far as explaining that they all have their own sky systems. It's crazy. I'm sure you could chat GPT this. Chat GPT is the best for Torah referencing. Like, seriously, if you learn Torah, if you start in yeshiva, if you're like learning Daf Yomi, if you're really putting in those hours, you know, you're starting in the basement dish, you know, you're really putting in that work. You really want to make that learning. You want to like bind yourself to that Torah on that level. You're studying the Pashut, you're studying the Sod, you're studying the whole thing. You're really putting in that work. You know, like you would think, like. Anyways, so if you're really doing that Torah, my big ups to you and your service to God. Because that's what we're called here to do, man. We're called here to fill the Torah, to scrutinize it and to understand it at its infinitesimal point. And underneath all of these is the laws of physics, like I mentioned before about anger and sexual immorality and things like this. These are choices. And the laws outline specific things that we should and should not do. And a lot of them correlate to anger or, for example, anything for the physical body. There's a mitzvah called Shiluach HaKan, sending away a mother bird before you take its eggs. If you're in the wild and you're starving and you stumble across a bird that is kosher, that you want to eat the eggs, that, you know, you have to keep kosher. You can't, you know, and then in order to fulfill the mitzvah of Shiluach HaKan, it has to be a kosher bird. And then you have to chase the mother bird away, and then you could take the eggs. So imagine like being hungry, not eating for days, walking through the desert, somebody like trying to survive, stumbles across a nest. If you follow the mitzvahs of the Torah, you have to do that. It's a part of the balance of power of free will. Even if you're starving, you can't just run up to the bird, grab the egg, crack it in your mouth, and eat it. Food. You know, like you have to overcome that drive. You have to overcome that impulse. And by doing so, you acquire this like this limitlessness, which is the true free will, which is the fulfillment of the Torah. And this is by no means a an act of proselytization to try to get Gentiles to become Jews. I'm not interested in that. I'm just here telling you what the Jewish tradition teaches, telling you all that you don't even know about it. You have no clue what it is. You think you do because you believe everything on the street, that the craziest scamming grifters who like are literally sucking the system of like just their presence is all their contribution is to society. They're telling you what to think and they don't even know, and it's all speculation, and it's all like this dark, like it's like all the promotion of further dark ages is really what it is. It's the promotion of further dark ages. There's no coincidence that Galileo was blacklisted by the Catholic Church until this generation, where the Pope unexcommunicated him. He was excommunicated. It is crazy. And that was like hundreds of years that this organization kept us in a dark age, controlling our belief system, controlling what we think is the end variable of outcomes of the possibilities that could be our reality. It's crazy to think about. It's absolutely crazy to think about. And it's true because it comes from the Bible. It comes from the stories and the lessons and the teachings that were drawn from that and handed down generation after generation by the Jewish people to today. With the exact same Jews of today are the Jews of yesteryear, living in this quantum hiccup of death and rebirth, reincarnation, until the end of the days, when the Messiah comes and solves death for all of humanity, and we become rightfully immortal and take our place on our throne with God as his wife, as his spiritual companion, as what we were created to be. And that is a transcendental reality, only accessible through free will, completely available to everyone who seeks free will. The knowledge and truth of free will, which is the mitzvot of the Torah. The performance of these mitzvot have to be controlled for the reality to remain imbalanced. We do not proselytize, for proselytization alone challenges free will. If it's easy, then you're not really being free. That's why there's only a limitation. When the Mashiach comes and the end result is the Techiyat HaMeitim, only those who know will be at that level, and the others who are just getting exposed to it for the first time, it's like the vaccinated who wake up and realize that they got taken advantage of. It's the same thing, but it's just going to go so much further. Like, oh, that's what God is. Oh, God wants a personal relationship with me. Oh, I have the ability to control the outcomes and the variables of my life by participating in it with God. Oh my God, there's so much more I can do. I am infinite potential. I am the source of abundance. Let's go. That's where we're at. That's why I'm doing this. And I'm really excited that I got to bring Ashton Forbes on the show, because that was a conversation that really brings it down to physical reality. And we even showed an example, of what he's known for, this disappearance of the MH370. I'm sure there's a government file on it, just like there is. There has to be an official government opinion on it, just the fact that it was out on the internet. Like the Freedom of Information Act, you could like literally subpoena your own record, and you could get like all the files. Like if you passed by like a media camera, like at the Trump inauguration, like I was on the screen on the board on the CNN when they waved it on the televisions. I was like sitting there in the audience. They like highlighted me at the inauguration, right at the audience. It was awesome. I have the videos. It's like so cool that happened to me. But that was 2016, 2017 inauguration. And but when that happened, it was like, the variable outcomes of this world. All I'm saying, folks, is that everything is aligning. We're almost there. We have to have faith. We have to forgive the Jews. Yes, we sinned to God. That's why we inherited our exile. Our own mistake cost us the balance of power of the world. Ended up forcing dark ages amongst us, but that was also the Roman expansion. And when we empty out the Vatican catacombs, which is the ultimate disclosure act, we will see tons of hidden technologies, first of all, but also the hidden writings of all the peoples of the world. And people all over the world will be reconnected to lost histories of themselves, depending on their races. I mean, Alexander brought everything back with him to Greece, which is eventually sacked by Rome. And all these hidden relics of the ancient world have long been accounted for and been the prized possessions of rulers and monarchs. They thirst after these objects as like a token of like what they're entitled to by use of their great responsibility and their power. And so they lust after these objects. Look at even Charles and the way he lusts after this kind of, supernal mystical stuff. He's like crazy about it. That's why they're all into the adrenochrome and shit. Anyways, we're touching on many subjects here. I could go on forever. This was a great show. You really got to help me share it. Get the word out. This is a movement. This has to be a movement because this is the word of God, really. I mean, nobody's really speaking the word of God. Nobody's really talking about what it is actually going on in Hebrew, like what it is going on with like the immortals and the giants and stuff like that. Like literally the Bible talks about unicorns and giants. The Bible that everybody swears that every line in it is true. Unicorns, even dragons. The Tanaim Gedolim are dragons, folks. Crazy big dragons. That's in the book of Genesis. They're called Tanaim Gedolim, the gigantic reptiles. Dude, the Bible's dope, man. The Bible's the coolest book that was ever written. And I just want people to know it. I just want people to know the truth. And everybody here is vilifying the Jews because they don't want you to know the truth. They are operating for the foreign power. They are not domestic. They are foreign. They want to shut down free will. They want to limit freedom. They want to silence the Jews. They don't want the Kabbalah to speak. They want everybody to be drowned out by this monotonous noise of subversion and replacement theology, whether it manifests in that form or this form. Even physics, to some nature, is a replacement theology. And that's why it's important to imbue it with God now, because by imbuing it with God now, the revelations that we receive will be greater and happen sooner. The more we imbue what we do in our lives with God, the more that we hasten the arrival of this process. Every single one of us, Gentile and Jew, every single one of us, by the choices that we make, influence this process. So I ask you to believe with me, to show up to all my shows, to talk about my shows, to clip my shows. If you want to be a part of the show, reach out. There's lots of ways to get involved. Lots of big people want to get involved. It's an awesome show. I put together such a big thing. And I'll tell you guys, like, my analytics are huge. So when I get people on my show that are bigger than me, we're talking about like people who are really, their impressions are very, very large. The world fame has changed through social media. Because of it, a lot of people don't know who really are the famous people in the world. Because it's like a mix-up. Everybody still runs back to like Jay-Z while they do the craziest witchcraft and stuff like that. Marina Abramovich stuff. They're just like running to it, because they're being told to and they're afraid of it. And they're tied into the collapsing system of media, which is like CNN and all these things, And I'm excited to see what Larry Ellison does with CNN. Like, instead of being like so black pilled on it, like even just the elimination of it by Larry Ellison, like he bought TikTok. Thank God he liberated that for our country. And there are people who are out there who they would rather it be China than owned by a Jew. Like, that's crazy. That is so foreign. That is enemies, domestic and foreign. Those are domestic Americans working for foreign enemies that want to subvert the American Constitution. People like to LARP on APAC and stuff like that. Those are American citizens who contribute and pay taxes and contribute to the government here. They are like tried and true Americans. My family is a 7th generation American on both sides, all Jewish. We're like so old. We're called Kharkovian Jews. We came here after a horrible pogrom wiped out like 1/3 of Ukraine and Poland. it was just so brutal massacre that like everybody left. And it all the way up to Lithuania. There was just this wave of anti-Semitism that started in Kharkov. There was this great library in Kharkov. And I'm a Kharkovian Jew. This is my family lineage. We were a part of this, on my mother's side. And it's more than just Kharkov, because Kharkov was like a modern city that was really like demolished and changed forever with the expulsion of the Jews in the modern age. But in the olden days, shortly after the Civil War, there was this horrible pogrom that took place from Kharkov when they still had a great library of Kharkov at the time. And that's when my family dwelled in Kharkov. And that was 7 generations ago. And I have other family throughout Ukraine too. I love that lineage. I love all my lineages, but that one is cool because it's all tied in with like Breslov and Rebbe Nachman and the Baal Shem Tov, and like I just love going to Ukraine, and I love like connecting to like what we went through. It's like a living museum of my ancestors, and I have like crazy visions. I've been to Ukraine 4 times, and every time I've gone, I've had like the craziest supernatural experiences. Been to houses that I know and I lived in, one that I think I got killed in a previous life. Just so crazy. I don't know if I got killed in it or if I was able to see that some Jewish family got massacred within the walls, and there was the extension in the stone and that was in Uman. That was one of the Uman experiences that I had. But my family were called Kharkovian Jews when we came to America. We came from all over Ukraine to Lithuania because of this horrible pogrom that swept all 3 countries. And we came shortly after the Civil War. My father's side comes from Lithuania. He comes from this town called Vilna, which is a modern city. It's the capital of Lithuania. But at the time that my family came there, it was a large center of Torah learning. It was it was a stronghold of Judaism. It was a very Jewish town. As early as the 1450s, and we've always had great, tremendous leadership from the town of Vilna until Jews were finally expelled entirely. But it was so much so a center of leadership that in the 1492, in the Spanish expulsion, most of the Spanish families, the Sephardic families, went to Ashkenaz and moved to Lithuania. A large portion of Lithuania and Lithuanian Jewry it's called Gerush Sephard, and it's an actual term of yichus, which is a term of lineage, for all those who don't know. So the Gerush Sephard really were some of the great founders of the movement of Vilna because they brought all that Torah with them, like Rabbi Shmuel Hanagid, all sorts of different, all sorts of different great rabbis that existed from that time, during the Spanish Inquisition. Um, you know, uh, Don Yitzhak Abarbanel, for example, is one of them. Rebbe Don Yitzhak Abarbanel, the Abarbanel. Many great scholars, works of Torah scholarship that have shaped our culture and really came through the tradition of the Lithuanian Jewry, come from Spain. A lot of it, actually. It's Spanish Inquisition. It's an interesting thing that I hope historians begin to study because it's, there's living traditions and there's artifacts that accompany those claims, and it's like a well-known historical fact that should be preserved by humanity and understood. How Lithuania even came to be, even Berlin for that matter. Berlin was a Jewish city originally 1800 years ago. There's even references to Berlin in the Talmud of what is they assume to be Berlin today. It says in the Talmud that 400 families from the tribe of Benjamin, during the reign of King Solomon, first were the ones to move to Ashkenaz when it was the kingdom of Ashkenaz. This was a government that existed in the ancient world that's history has been wiped out from the face of the earth. People don't even know about that history. The Germanic experience started off as bogs fighting the Roman Empire, mindless nothings, and that's just simply not true. Your history has been taken from you in this European conquest of thought. that is controlled by the Vatican. So, one of the great things that will come about through the age of disclosure is the bloodlines of the Europeans. All you white nationalists out there, all your bloodlines are going to come out. All your white, whatever you want to be, Aryan bloodlines are going to come out. And you could go march around proud with them as soon as the Vatican releases all that stuff. And that has a lot to do with like the kingdom of Kenaz and Ashkenaz. They were two kingdoms, just like they were two brothers. Like, for instance, like if you look at Charlemagne and the way that his kingdom was split amongst his three sons, Charlemagne's kingdom created France, Germany, and England today. That is the reason why these three countries exist, is because of Charlemagne. You know, all these countries, not England, but I know it's France and Germany. What's the third country? Let's go figure that out. What's the three countries Charlemagne gave his inheritance to? I know his son split up the empire. West Francia, East Francia is modern Germany, France, and a land in between East and West France. So basically, France and Germany is Charlemagne, his descendants. So at one time a kingdom split. You know what I'm saying? But that is not what is Ashkenaz and Kenaz. Maybe it is actually. It is two kingdoms that, it is right there, two kingdoms that existed once before that were unified under Charlemagne and Charlemagne's descendants. By the way, I've read the books of Charlemagne. They're fucking awesome. Like, you should know Charlemagne. I always go to these white powerfuls. I'm like, yo, did you read Have 'em All? And they're like, what is Have 'em All? I'm like, did you read the Prose Edda? Like, what is that? And those ain't even like the scratch of the surface of these books that are out there. The writings of Charlemagne are dope, dude. They're crazy what went down then. Crazy. Anyways, there was once a kingdom called Ashkenaz, 1800 years ago. And there was once a kingdom called Kenaz in a different period also. They were both conquered by the Romans. History shoved into the annals of nothingness, replaced by the Gauls and the Visigoths. You come from somewhere, white man. Wake up, white man. You are not sleepyhead no more, white man. You have responsibility. Follow me, white man. I take you to Zion. Follow me. I show you the way to your ancient history. It will come about through the age of disclosure, where everybody will be reunited with their past. It's going to be great, folks. It's everything you want to happen. Stop fearing the Jews. We bring it. We do it. It's our thing that we give to you. Let us bring about the perfect humanity. Have faith in the biblical process. It doesn't get activated by us. We're only ready, willing, and able to do it. It gets activated by God, by his fulfillment of his presence here through our bittul. We wait. We all sit. And we become watchers, believing in the process of its unfolding reality. The age of the Mashiach. Have faith in it, that it is good, and that God himself is good. The essence of all goodness. Everything you want in a God and more. Have faith in God and Hashem. Let Hashem take you the way. Believe in the writings of the Torah. And understand that they can be explained through quantum physics. I don't know who's next, but this show was epic. I'm grateful for all of you just sitting through it. I have a little drop of my water left. I got to get to another event. It's kind of crazy how the things that I got going on in a day. Still got my coffee, which will take me the rest of the way. Baruch Hashem. Brain of Ashod Rabot V'chezron Al Kama Shabar Talayo B'em Nefesh Kol Chai. Baruch Hey Ha'olamim. I love you. Peace out. Good night.